Hello, everybody. Welcome into our latest live broadcast. My name is Kerry Holzman. Today it is Sunday, the 7th of September, 2025. And today we have a brand new, just released Minisforum M1 Pro mini PC that is, well, it is an incredibly powerful machine. In fact, I'm starting to think about all the different ways to test this. It's got so many bells, whistles, and features. I got a feeling we're going to have to do a part two. There's a lot to unpack here. So this is not an inexpensive mini PC, but it's also a great value. So by that I mean there's a lot more money you could spend for laptops and desktops and even other mini PCs to come equivalent to the power of this, at least as it's written on the box. We'll verify it. But for what this costs and what you're getting, well, you decide for yourself. I'm not going to tell you, because this looks like just the best of everything mixed in a bowl and put into a nice case. But we're going to test it and see, and there's a lot to test. Welcome into all the friends and members joining us today, and just looking over into the chat room. Let's say hello to everybody. I see Gerald McDaniel joining, along with Eddie Casanova, Arnold Albert, and our friend Rick Lakes, Tony Andow. Abdul Azim Patel just renewed membership, now a member for 33 months. Thank you, Abdul. There's Luke Greeny and Paul Vercher, Scott and David Graham all saying hello, as well as Mark Gaines, Ben Laird, and 3D Everything. So this is our live chat, just reading out the names of people I see participating in there. You have to say hello or I won't be able to see you. So join us if you would. Just be kind. That's all we ask. If you can't be kind, please don't join us. Lee Rigsby says hello. Coreyman0 joining us, along with Jim Kenny, Doman 2000, Victor Torres, and Jonathan Falls. All say hello in our chat room. We are live right now all over the world. And we invite everybody to come join us and say hello, as long as you're nice. Also, a shout out to our friend Buster out there in Scotland, who submitted a super chat via Amazon gift card just before the show. Thank you as always. Buster, we hope you're doing well. Of course, Mara's hanging out in the chat room, our channel administrator. So if you have questions for the channel, of course, you can talk directly to Mara during the live show. I think I got everybody. Now, I am super excited to look at this, so I'm not going to dilly-dally too much because, like I said, we have a lot to get to here. There's literally and figuratively a lot to unpack. So by that, what sort of thing are we expecting in this box? Why would I be making a big deal out of this? Is it because it's Minisforum? Well, maybe. I am personally a fan of Minisforum. I like them. I recommend them to my real-life customers, upon which my reputation rides and I am held accountable. And I don't say that for a lot of brands, so whenever they send me something new, I'm always super excited to see what it is. So if we look over at the Minisforum website for this model, this literally was just released. We're one of the earliest folks to get our hands on it here to make a YouTube video, and we certainly appreciate Minisforum thinking of us and giving us the opportunity to get in one of the first looks at it. Let me jump over here and see if we can pull up. There it is. Now the link that I'm showing you here, this is in the video notes, in the video description below this video, along with the Amazon link, which I will show you next. But I want to see how Minisforum is promoting this. Now, this is the machine itself. It doesn't look like anything. I mean, as far as like we've seen this design before, there's no creativity in this design other than it's a very nice design. And if you see what goes into making these cases, these metal cases, there's a lot of work that goes into just making the shell. So since I've seen the video and how that's done, I've been much more appreciative of the entire metal stamping, anodizing, polishing that goes into it. What does this machine have? Well, first there's a Pro version and a non-Pro version. All right, so we're looking at the Pro. We're looking at the top of the line today. This is an Intel Ultra 9. This is the Ultra 285H. So the Ultra line replaces the Core line. We've seen the Ultra 100 series. and now we're into the 200 series, and it's a 16 core with 16 threads, meaning Intel's done away with the hyper-threading on this. The graphics card is an ARC 140T GPU with dual channel DDR5 memory that you can change out. It's not soldered in. It's got dual channel PCIe 4 NVMe slots, so you can run a RAID 1 or RAID 0 array in here, although I do not recommend booting to a RAID array. It's fine to have it as a D or an E or an F drive, but not as a C drive, because it gets very, very difficult and complex. If you ever have to repair a Windows install, you will not be able to do it without the RAID driver injected into your boot media, or you won't see a thing. So proceed with caution. Now, RAID 1 is fine, but RAID 0, you definitely want to be particularly cautious of, or always maintain good backups with a rescue disk that has the RAID driver, or you won't be able to rescue it until you do. It's a 2.5 gig Ethernet port and Wi-Fi 7, the latest in Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth 5.4 is the latest in Bluetooth. Now you'll see the price here at $695. That's because the version it's defaulting to it does not include any RAM or storage or operating system. So you can save some money if your goal is to put your own stuff in there. If you're like most people, though, you want it already assembled and turnkey ready. Take it out of the box, start using it. So here with 32 gigs of RAM, a terabyte NVMe storage, and the Windows 11 Pro operating system, your price goes to $879. So that is what we're looking at. Now this is clearly worth a lot more than that. So they've got some kind of discount happening here. Since it just came out, there's no reviews on this yet, so we'll be one of the earliest. But you'll notice there is I guess they're both called Pro. I stand corrected. So the M1 Pro 125H is a more affordable Ultra 5 processor instead of an Ultra 9. That does have some hyper-threading, right, with 14 cores with 18 threads and Intel Arc graphics. And similarly, it supports dual Gen 4 NVMe that supports RAID 0, RAID 1, and the same networking capabilities, just changing out essentially the processor with those graphics built into that CPU. And that makes a significant difference on that price. And once again, we're looking at a bare bones price. If we want 32 gigs of RAM and 1 terabyte, that's going to bring that price to $543, which if you go back a year, just 1 year, and look at the mini PCs we reviewed around this price range, and you compare this to that in just 1 year, wow. I mean, this is a massive difference between the I/O, the performance, the capabilities, and yet it hasn't grown in size. Apparently, it looks like they're pretty much using the same cases here. So, you know, as much as of a fan as I am of the Minisforum, the AI X1, you know, that's a pretty big machine. It's more similar to like an M4 Mac Mini or something. These, on the other hand, to the naked eye, they all look pretty similarly over the last few years. Some made of plastic and some of the nicer ones with the metal like this has. The downside to the metal is that it can interfere with the signal strength of your Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. The upside of the metal is it's a lot more attractive. Of course, it costs more to manufacture, so there's going to be a cost differential. And, you know, our friend Doug Betts was showing another manufacturer's mini PC where the heat vents, where the air blows out from the CPU, because the case is made of plastic, that heat coming out of that for, you know, well over a year started to cause the plastic to wave, sort of became not melted, but sort of like keeping a hairdryer over something plastic over and over and over, day after day after day after day. Not that it was overheating, but the plastic of the case clearly started to deform as a result. In any event, you'll never have that problem with a metal case, is all I'm saying. And it's certainly a lot more attractive. It's a lot more upscale. So with that, there's pros and cons to everything depending on where your values lie. Now let me take a look over here. Let's go to Amazon and just see how Minisforum is promoting this over there at Amazon, because the Amazon page can be a little confusing to navigate. When we come over here to Amazon, you'll notice it says it's a Minisforum M1 Pro 285H, right? That's the Ultra 9 version, but it's showing a picture of the AI X1. This is not the same computer. So they have got a little error here in their Amazon page, their Amazon store. But notice it's $1,299, $1,300. There's a $240 off coupon, bringing this just over $1,000, equipped with 64 gigs of RAM, right? We have 32 gigs, and 2 terabytes of NVMe storage. That's just going to be one drive, leaving an empty slot. And that explains why this price is a bit higher than, they don't seem to be offering this configuration over at their official website. But if you look down here, this is why it gets confusing. These are all different makes and models of Minisforum PCs that are not necessarily related in any way. But you see the AI X1 Pro, that's the picture they're showing us. But on the M1 Pro, you notice that picture doesn't change. So someone made a mistake here. We'll let them know so they can correct it. That is more like what we're looking at here. The X1 255 is more similar in case design than the M1 Pro. That's why I say they've used the similar cases in many models. And if you're looking on the Minisforum Amazon site, be aware if you're not looking, if you're not seeing what you're looking for, you've got to look down here at the different models. Okay, even different models configured in different ways with different RAM, different storage will likely be another little box if it's offered. Let's see, powerful processor, Intel Core Ultra 9, 285, Copilot, high-speed memory, supports 128 gigs, yep. RAID 0, yep. RAID 1, yep. Immersive gaming or experience, 65-watt powerful output, and OCulink GPU expansion support, very good. It can support 4 displays, each at 4K, using HDMI, DisplayPort, and there are 2 USB 4 ports that can output 2 monitors with adapter cables. So you're looking at 4 monitors that can support 4K at 60 on HDMI, 8K at 60, or 4K at 144 Hz through DisplayPort. And the USB ports can display up to 8K at 60 Hz. But you can use all 4 simultaneously. Now the USB 4, I think this version 2? I can't remember now. USB 4 supports 15 watts of output, 65 to 100 watt input. USB port up to 40 gigs per second provides 15 watts. Okay. Of course, Minisforum is excellent with their cooling. I mean, they're second to none when it comes to keeping the mini PCs cool. And if we scroll down here, just to once again, just see the way it's advertised. It says it's got a dedicated sound card. That's interesting. And we have, let's see, everything else we talked about. A little bit about the RAM, a little bit about the NVMe, full speed, 40 gig per second, USB 4. There is a USB 4 version 2. You'll start seeing that here anytime now. That'll theoretically double that to 80, presuming you have any USB 4 version 2 accessories to plug into it, right? They got to have it on both sides. But I might be confusing this with another model, so we'll open it up and we'll just verify that. A little bit about the cooling system here. I recommend you do not try to upgrade the cooling system on a Minisforum. They use an application of liquid metal that is it's applied via a machine in a very precise method to keep it free of any contaminants or air. Anything you do to it as an end user will only make it worse. You cannot get it better than the precision of the machines that are applying the liquid metal. As a result, although this one doesn't specifically say liquid metal, they have been traditionally, they being Minisforum, have traditionally pioneered a way to apply that in a very unique proprietary method that is better than any human being could do. And I would recommend you leave it alone, and you shouldn't have any reason to get in there. But if you want to, you can make it worse if you choose to. Now, here's the M1 Pro with the proper photo. Let's click on that. Okay, this is actually showing the right photograph here. Apply a $255 coupon. That'll bring our price down to what, about $1,065, something like that. And then that's of course the same config with 64 gigs. of RAM and 2 terabytes of storage. These are different models. The R9 will be Ryzen 9. There's the Ultra 5 model. And you see a significant price difference there. And the Ultra 5 model bare bones, see the 0 plus 0? That means 0 RAM and 0 SSD and 0 operating system. Look at that. If you take an $86 coupon off of that, you're looking at under $400. Wow. Holy moly. I mean, look, an Ultra 5 is not an Ultra 9, but under $400 is a far cry from over $1,000. But you get what you pay for, right? That's not going to come with 64 gigs of RAM or 2 terabyte solid state drive or the Windows operating system. And it's a lower tier processor, which is probably overkill for most office use and most home consumer use, with a few exceptions. But just bear in mind, we don't have that one today, but they're going to look identical on the outside. It's really just the chip on the motherboard. Same motherboard, same everything else. All right, let's get back over to camera 1 here. Charlie Purdy joins us and says hello. There is also Dennis joining us. Good to see our friend Dennis. Dustin, Viper 30. Martin Postema says hello. Mark Leibowitz joining us from Chicago. Gilberto Calazzo says hello. There's Dazzle 555. Shabira Ahmad says hello. David Herzog says hello. And Sneaky Hippo says hello. There's Dustin and Mike Gamer joining us. Well, we're getting a full house today. All right. That's what I'm talking about. And so it should be. Lee Rigsby says hello. Joins us here in the chat. Andy W6AD says hello. Okay, so I hope I'm catching everybody here. I am way too anxious. I am super excited to unbox the brand new Minisforum M1 Pro. Better do that again. Do I have the name right? Hold on. Check. Yeah, I got it. One more time. I hesitated. I couldn't remember the name. All right, I am super excited to unbox the brand new Minisforum M1 Pro. This is the 285H Intel Ultra Edition. This says it's got 32 gigs of RAM and 1 terabyte of storage. And let's see what's in the box. Let's go to close up. There's our mini PC. Documentation. HDMI cable. This is going to be our optional OCulink adapter. This would consume the second M.2 slot, which you can use either for storage or you can use it for OCulink, which is used for adding an external graphics card, taking a desktop graphics card, putting it into a dock with its own power supply, and then running the OCulink cable, and now you've got yourself a killer gaming rig. Power cable. Visa mounting bracket. That's for mounting behind the computer or under your desk against a wall. Just a mounting bracket with screws. And finally, the last thing I see in here is a relatively compact power adapter. Now, one thing you're going to notice, these power adapters on the nicer mini PCs, they do not plug directly into the wall. This is a cloverleaf style power connector. These plug in more similar to a laptop, where you've got a cable that runs from one end of the power adapter to the wall, and another cable that runs from the power adapter to the computer. This is my preferred method because having an adapter plugged straight into the wall, which is what many of the lesser expensive models do to cut cost, it can hog up a few of the surge protector ports or wall outlet ports, so you can't plug in things next to it, and it limits your cable to half length. Because if you add up the length of the cable that comes with this and this cable, you have twice the cable, literally. But when you plug it straight into a wall and you run a cable out, you might end up needing some kind of an extension cord, depending on where you place your mini PC. But that is one way they can get prices down, especially on the budget mini computers, by reducing their expenses by not including that kind of stuff. So just keep that in mind when you're buying. I would expect a power supply like this on a machine of this caliber. I would not expect this on a budget entry-level computer, because this costs more money to do. Now, what I'm going to do, I think we need to test the OCulink port at some point in the future. I'm going to put everything, just kind of tuck it away here for now. I've got my own power cable that we can use for this test. And let's just get all this out of the way. Let's see what the mini PC looks like here. We'll go back to camera 2. I like this packaging a lot better that they're using now than the plastic bags that tear and rip. We've got a USB port, HDMI, USB 4, display port, Ethernet, or Keystone jack here. We've got a barrel style power connector. There's a dust cover right here, and that's to cover the optional OCulink. Since it's not installed, this would just be a gaping hole. So by putting a dust cover on it, it's going to prevent any sort of items from going in there or bugs getting inside of the computer. Literally a computer bug. And if you were to use that OCulink option, then we would obviously take that plug out. We've got good venting here with a Kensington lock, meaning that you can get a steel cable sold optionally from other parties that will lock this down like locking a bicycle, so that no one can walk off with it if you're worried about that. On the front, power button, USB 3, USB 4, headphone, microphone, audio jack. Looks like a CMOS reset here, and maybe that little one there on each side. I think those are dual stereo microphones, I believe. I imagine that would be pretty echoey, but it's better than nothing. These people aren't reading your lips in your Zoom call. On the bottom, look, Minisforum has given us rubber feet off to the side of the holes. I think they're hearing us finally. My biggest complaint with Minisforum computers is covering up the screws with the rubber feet. And when you have to take the rubber feet off, the adhesive sometimes stays stuck to the case. Also, the more often you have to take the rubber feet off, the more often you get into it. You might be one of those people that opens the thing up every week and you just can't help yourself. Most people don't. But regardless, the feet don't go back on as strongly with the adhesive every time you have to remove them until such time as they just won't stick anymore. I've complained and complained and complained, as have many others. Just move the feet over a little bit so we can get to the screws and leave the feet alone. For a while, we were getting a little package of extra feet, but then what happens when you run out of those? And again, if you never use them, and then a couple of years goes by and you want to use one, you might find out even the brand new ones you never used, the adhesive isn't sticky anymore. This is just completely nonsense. So I appreciate now that Minisforum is paying attention to our criticisms and our recommendations for improvement. This is a welcome change. Also, if we bring this up to the camera, a couple things I want to point out is this is user-friendly for you to get into if you want to. You'll see there's a little tab right here. So if you take these screws out here in each corner, and then you'll just put a little spudger or some, very carefully stick a flat tool in there, preferably a plastic or wooden popsicle stick or something, credit card corner, and you should be able to pry that right out, and that'll get you right to your RAM, storage, OCulink. You can almost see it right through the, you can see the drive and stuff in there. So that's super easy to access. Should I do my thumbnail? Look. So stupid. All right. I amuse myself, don't mind me. Let's fire it up. Let's do our first power on self-test. So to do that, we're not going to plug it into the network. You'll notice they don't put all the stickers all over it about don't do this and don't do that, and you got to peel all these stickers off. I don't even see an Intel sticker on here. None of that nonsense. I guess the Intel sticker's on the bottom. That's where it belongs, in my opinion. Let's keep it professional, folks. That's all I'm saying. And let me grab my power cable, and I will grab my keyboard and my mouse. Let me turn that so everybody who's tuning in can see what we're working on. Keyboard and mouse I happen to have right here. I'm going to use this USB 2 port because that's what it's for. There's no benefit to plugging a keyboard or mouse into a USB 3 port. It doesn't hurt anything, but it might tie up that faster port should you want that for, you know, some faster device such as a flash drive or backup drive, etc. You'd want it to run at the fastest possible speed, I would think. Most people don't ask me, how can I make my backups take 3 times or 4 times longer? Oh, be sure to plug them into your USB 2 port. But plugging a keyboard or mouse into the faster port isn't going to result in you typing any faster. I tried. Okay. Let me grab an HDMI cable. Now, we do everything here live and unscripted. It's all shot with one take. We keep all the mistakes and misunderstandings in. That most, and I mean 99% of all content creators on this platform and others will hide all of that from you. They're deceiving you. They don't want you to see the mistakes. They think making mistakes isn't professional, but nobody ever became a professional without first making mistakes. And even when you are a professional, you're not immune from making mistakes because that would imply that you're done with learning and there's nothing more life has to offer you, thereby making one question why you exist. So there's no harm and no foul in showing people how to learn. I think people have forgotten how to learn, or they've forgotten they learned it. Sometimes we see very unrealistic comments from people who expect to see a commercial from me. The videos are too long. The videos show you're making mistakes. Yes, that's the real world we live in. If you want to live in the fantasy world of TV and YouTube videos, you're not going to find that here, but you can find it just about everywhere else with few exceptions. So for the people who realize how rare this is, I really appreciate that you guys get what we're doing here and we learn together. For example, I don't know that this unit's going to turn on. How do I know if the unit is dead on arrival? How do I know that there's no damage to it? How do I know that smoke and fire isn't going to come out of it? Well, I work on a grand scale compared to most people, you know, home users, and I see a lot of computers every week. And when it comes to new computers, these days, it is like winning a lottery ticket if you get one bad. Unless you happen to live in an area with a bad delivery driver who likes to drop kick your packages from the curb to your front door. It's like the newspaper kid that would throw the newspaper up on the roof. Thanks, kid. That doesn't mean all newspaper delivery people were terrible. You just got a bad one in your area. That being said, that may be an old reference, but I'm sure most of you get it. What's a newspaper? A newspaper, kid? What's that? Yeah, never mind. All right, letting my age show a little bit here. So we've got 3 things plugged in, right? We've got a power brick, HDMI cable, and our USB for the keyboard and mouse. This is extraordinarily critical when turning on a computer or a laptop, mini PC for the very first time, whether it's something you bought at the store or you built yourself. Your first power on, you want to make sure everything's working. You want to make sure that if there's a problem, it's not a problem you just caused by plugging an incompatible device in or plugging it in the wrong place. That means that the automatic assumption when people don't check things before they start to get comfortable, it often results in a misdiagnosis where the person who caused the problem blames the problem somewhere else and fails to acknowledge their own reflection in a mirror. And you know, you're not breaking any law if you want to live that way, but I don't know. I don't just plop my butt down anywhere. I look before I sit, so I'm not sitting on a scorpion or a thumbtack or, I don't know, a metal fence post. So I always want to make sure that things are structurally sound and working before, you know, in this example, before I put my full weight down onto it. First step is visual. The second step is gently testing it. And then whew, okay, then we can relax. So we're going to turn this on for the first time with just keyboard and mouse, HDMI, and power. No Ethernet, no printers, no flash drives, no backup drives, no uninterruptible power supplies. None of that stuff, not yet. Okay, we ready? Let's turn it on. Where it's a good sign, we got a blue light. Let's switch over to this output and see what it looks like. Hopefully we'll get a Minisforum logo here. And we do, very good. And let's see if, oh yeah, it's already starting to boot very quickly. Anthony Pete and Sub-Zero saying hello in the chat room along with Gary Tatum. Welcome in, everybody. First boot, live unscripted. Let's see what it looks like and how this goes and what version of Windows we have. We can see if secure boot is enabled by default. Not that it's that critical, but it's something we can check. And verify that the amount of RAM and storage we have is what's supposed to be in there. These are all your basic steps before you get too comfortable, because otherwise you're wasting your time if you have to send the unit back for any reason, and all that work you did was for nothing. Okay. Out-of-box experience. So it does appear that we have perhaps an international version of Windows. That's okay. We'll continue in English. And our region, remember they ship these all over the world. Our region is United States. Keyboard is going to be a US keyboard, and I don't speak any other languages, so I don't need any other keyboard layout. Wi-Fi pops up. I'm going to say I don't have internet. And I'm going to accept the license agreement because I don't have a choice. We're going to put a username of user, leave the password blank, and I like to turn all this off but location settings. And by leaving location settings on, it's going to keep my date and time up to date. There's no reason for you to manually enter a date and time on a modern computer. The flashing 12 days of VCRs are long behind us. Please join us in 2025. Now that's just my personal preference. You still want to do everything by hand, knock yourself out. You might have one of those projectors that you crank by hand and that's how you watch movies. I don't know. Maybe that's what you do. But for the rest of us, modern technology, embrace it. It makes life easier, especially when it works. It's more reliable now than ever, and faster than ever, and much higher of value for what you get for the money than ever before in the history of computers. These are good times to be living in, because there's no sign of that stopping. Models coming out in the future will offer more value, be faster, and even be more self-healing. When I say self-healing, when Windows 10 or 11 crashes, a lot of times it corrects itself. I can tell you by showing you the number of service calls I used to get versus the number of service calls I get today, which has dropped to, well, I'd say it's dropped at least 80%, because now a lot of the service calls automatically get fixed by Windows by itself. I'm okay with that. I don't mind one bit. There's plenty of other work than fixing random Windows blue screens that very rarely ever happen anymore. They still happen, but nowhere near the frequency that they used to happen. All right, so here's our desktop, and you'll notice this is all shaded out here on the start menu because we haven't plugged the internet in yet. So if I come over here momentarily, let me jump over to camera 1. Let's grab our Ethernet cable and we'll give ourselves internet access here. As soon as I plug this in, we should begin to see the start menu icons propagate once it achieves an IP address from our router. And then with that, we can go to Windows Update. And we'll check for updates. I also like to turn this feature on and then these features on. And if I go too fast for you, you can rewind this video and then hit the space bar to pause it at any time so that you can take time to read the screens and options. That way I can go at my pace and you can go at your pace, and we're not holding everybody up. Now, when it comes to things like the power plan, I like to check to make sure out of the factory configuration that the monitor's not going to turn off on me while we're live. That's good. I can type in MSInfo32 down here in the search bar, and that's going to bring up system information, which I'll hit enter on, and we can see if Secure Boot is turned on. It is. And of course, we have a UEFI BIOS. So everything's good here in what we're expecting. Now we are missing a bunch of, appears, driver updates. I see Realtek, which is the network interface. I see Intel chipset drivers or network card drivers. ASX drivers, I think, is the sound. More Intel drivers, and oh, it's finding my Samsung monitor as an HP monitor. Well, that's not going to hurt anything. In fact, it might even have failed that. These are all happening relatively quickly, so they're not huge updates. The cumulative updates are the ones that can take a while. Now, the resolution, I think, is in 4K. Let me right-click and change that to 1080, or I'm assuming it's in 4K. It is. That's a little rough on my eyes, so I'm going to go to 1920 by 1080. There it is. Keep those changes. And I'm going to right-click on the Start button and go to our Device Manager. And let's see what we got here. So display driver is going to be the ARC 140T. That's got 16 gigs of RAM on it. Ooh. Oh. That seems more like discrete graphics. That's probably going to be pretty good at gaming. I mean, maybe nothing compared to an modern AMD, but still, for Intel, this looks like it could be a significant improvement if you're into gaming. For network adapters, what do we have? I226V is our wired adapter, and our Wi-Fi is the BE200, both from Intel. Nice. What is that sound chip? They said it had a dedicated sound chip. Well, Realtek audio and HP audio driver for display. So the display audio is what comes out of your HDMI and display port that's built into the graphics card. And Realtek audio, I wonder which audio chip we have. If we want to check our system properties versus system info, we right-click on the Start menu, go to System, and we can verify that we're getting what we paid for, right? The i9, sorry, the Ultra 9. We don't call it i9 anymore. Ultra 9 285H, 32 gigs of RAM is detected. And Windows 11 Pro 24H2 is already installed. And the support for the manufacturers right here where you can easily find it. Are we activated? Let's check activation settings. Already activated. So this is turnkey, ready to roll. As soon as you get it, take it out of the box, plug it in, get your updates. If everything's working great, then start plugging in your printers and all your other accessories and start installing your software. That would be the proper right way to do things if you only want to do it once. So we're going to let that finish installing, and let me jump over to the chat room. And I'll tell you what, let's put me back up on screen. Put me in a corner somewhere. Keep an eye on both of us. Stand here. Oh, did my date and time get updated? Let me see. I got to get a big screen view of that. It's a little, yeah, it's dead on. Yeah, it automatically synchronized. See, we don't even have to think about that. Likely when we first turned it on, this could have been 12 hours behind because it's made in, the factories in Asia, East Asia. Oh, maybe that's what they mean by built-in sound card. There's a speaker inside, like a laptop, and we can play audio right through the mini PC. I like it. Okay. Let me jump over to the chat. Let's see if you guys have any questions that I can answer. You probably have questions I can't, but that's okay. I'll do what I can. And we have lots of well-educated and well-informed people in our community that can answer your questions even when I can't. usually. Anthony Pete said he got his first Minisforum UM580 a couple of years ago. I'm very happy with it. Yeah. Is the video memory shared or dedicated? You know, I just looked at that and I did see that there was shared memory. So what I'm curious about is if there might be two adapters. In other words, one on the GPU and then a discrete. I'm not sure. When I look in the device manager, let's go back in there real quick. I was curious about the same thing. When I go back to the device manager, and then I go under display adapters, right here, do I see two? I only see one. And it does say it's 16 gigs. So if that was truly using 16 gigs, then when we looked at our system properties, right, when I come back here, right click and go to system, then we would see here 16 gigs subtracted. But that's not what's happening. We're only getting about half a gig subtracted, which is almost insignificant. But that's being used by something, and I'm not quite sure, but it's such a minor amount. That would require a bit more research to figure out where that's going. But it does definitely seem to be necessary and not an option so far as I can tell. And even though that says to restart now, I'm just going to let it continue until it's done with this big update. Otherwise, we're just going to wait for it either way. Paul Vircher with $4.99 in Super Chat. Thank you, Paul. Andy said it's integrated graphics. So it's a weird hybrid then. If it's partially integrated, so it requires a modicum of RAM, then where's the other 16 gigs of memory coming from? It's built onto the chip? If so, that would be fantastic because there's no faster way to communicate with the CPU than being a part of the CPU. There's no circuit board circuitry that can match that. If we can get everything just onto the CPU and nothing else, that would be an incredibly fast computer. Comments 24/7 says, sup, Carrie, welcome in, welcome in. Coreyman said it looks like the Intel Arc 140T mobile GPU, which is integrated into the Core Ultra 9 285H. You know, it wouldn't hurt for me to ask Copilot. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? Why is half a gig of my RAM used on Intel 140T Arc with 16 gigs RAM? I might have confused Copilot. Let's see what it says. If you're seeing around 0.5 gig of RAM being used by the Intel Arc iGPU, like the i40, not the 140, i40T, on a system with 16 gigs of RAM, it's expected behavior. Okay, but that's not what we're saying. How much RAM does an i40T Arc have built in? Does not have dedicated RAM built in like a discrete. Instead, it uses shared memory, meaning it typically borrows RAM . It can access up to 18 gigs of system RAM. We'd have to test it because is the 16 gigs saying the maximum it can use of the 32 or of however much you have? Or does it actually have its own? Because here it's saying it does not have its own. So we'd have to test that. Now the typical test that I run on these would be like Cinebench so that we can see the CPU score, which should be really good on this. And I'm realizing I don't hear anything coming out of here. I don't even hear a fan. Oh. It's like putting a seashell to your ear. What do you mean have I renewed my car insurance? My car warranty. No, it's running, but I have to bring it right up to my ear to hear it. That's very, very quiet. All right. Rosemere says Windows 11 overheating on an i7 6700K. That's likely because your 6700K is not compatible with Windows 11. If you're going to force things to work together that aren't going to work together, then they're not going to work together, certainly without some significant struggle. A 6700K is not Windows 11 compatible, and if you decide to put Windows 11 on it, now you know why you shouldn't. So I think you've answered your own question. You did something you weren't supposed to do and you're getting a result that surprises you, you shouldn't be surprised. Personally, what would you expect? If it all ran fine, why wouldn't Microsoft just include that? They're just out to get you. It's just threw a dart at the wall and said, yeah, that's 6700. Let's pick that one just to pick on somebody. The technology moves at a rapid pace, and a 6700 CPU would have come out approximately 9 or 10 years ago. As a result, trying to mix anything old with anything new, just in general, try it sometime. Take some old food and then mix it into a recipe with fresh food and let me know how that food tastes. When you try and blend old and new together, you are likely going to have a problem. Not always, but likely, and it's likely going to be a very weird problem that very few people can relate to because nobody else really does that in mass. So it's going to be hard to find somebody else who thought to do that to get help from. You're on your own. Put Windows 10 on it like it's supposed to be, and probably solve your problem. Andy says you can set the VRAM in the BIOS. Okay, good to know. That's pretty normal. Does it say in the task manager? You know, that's a good question. Let's go look at our resources in the task manager here. Full screen. I'll hit Control-Alt-Delete. We'll go to our task manager over here. We'll go to our resource monitor over here. Where did it go? We've got a neural processing unit for AI processing, which a lot of people don't get that yet, but don't worry, it's coming. You won't be able to avoid it. Right now, the NPU is not using any shared memory. The GPU, on the other hand, does show that 0.5, and it can use a total of 18. So just what Copilot reported, that's exactly right. So there it is. Asked and answered. We can see we're using 2 of 2 slots here at 5600 megatransfers a second. That means we're in dual channel mode. So they didn't just give us one 32 gig module, they gave us 2 16s. And that enables dual channel for higher performance. Okay, very good. Let me get back over to the chat, see what else you got. Yeah, that whole mixing old and new is just bad in all areas of life. New stitches with an old Band-Aid, you know what I mean? Like, keep the old with the old, keep the new with the new, and you will have problems a few. There you go. Ron Hillier, it's a friend of mine I've known since the 80s, joins us and says hello. And just kind of scrolling back here to see what I might have been missing. When this is done, I'll throw my utilities on there and we can run the Crystal Disk Mark on it. And we can run Cinebench on it and see what temps we get, as well as what sort of fan noise, and ultimately the performance number on this bad boy is likely better than anything you're watching this video on. And if you doubt me, you can download the free tools I'm about to show you and run the benchmarks against your NVMe speed and run the benchmarks against your Cinebench speed. And I don't care what you have at home, this probably beats it. Probably. If you doubt me, it's free for you to check and see for yourself. Don't let its size fool you. Jose Lopez with a $1 super chat earlier. Thank you, Jose. Now, as a content creator, I can tell you Intel's integrated graphics are far superior than anything from NVIDIA or AMD's Radeon. At least using CyberLink Power Director, when I try to render a video enabling the NVIDIA discrete graphics card, it takes 2 to 3 times longer. If I use the onboard graphics, the video renders in a third of the amount of time. Now, I know that goes against common belief that discrete graphics are always better, but that's usually a gamer mentality. When it comes to actually creating, in many cases, and it depends what you're creating and what tools you're using to create with, the Intel graphics adapter that's built in is oftentimes most commonly the preferred graphics card by content creators, believe it or not. Do your own research, but I have no reason to lie about it. That's why I have a 3080 not sitting in this case. Not that I could put that in the capture card in there, but I wouldn't have been able to use this case. What I'm trying to tell you is that when it comes to gaming and there are certain high-end applications, maybe you're using DaVinci Resolve or something high-end, yeah, you're probably going to see a significant improvement on a high-end discrete graphics card. But mostly where people see that is gamers. And you won't find more gamers compared to actual business and creators than here on YouTube. So there's a huge abundance, a massive abundance of content that only relates to gaming values. And when it comes to actually working and getting a job done and creating, the number of videos we have here on this platform in that regard, they just pale in comparison. So if you don't know that, you might think that the only reason anybody comes to YouTube is you got to be, interested in gaming. It's not true. There's lots of other practical, pragmatic content here. It's just harder to find. But, to each their own. There's nothing wrong with being a gamer, and there's nothing wrong with gamers being attracted to YouTube. But it does not represent the average computer owner, because the average computer owner is not a gamer. Also, the average computer owner may not be watching YouTube, so one may go hand in hand with the other. But for me personally, and I cannot emphasize this enough, the performance of rendering a video in CyberLink Power Director is far superior with Intel integrated graphics. And it is what it is. Now, if you don't do that, you probably don't care. I don't game, so I don't care. See, now we're communicating. All right, let's see how we're doing here. Rosemary said Windows support ending in October. This is true. Windows 10 support is ending in the middle of October. But Microsoft is offering a free 12-year extension, and all you have to do is go to Windows Update and click the option to enable the extended security updates. So you don't have to worry about replacing your computer for another year. It's completely free to sign up. All you have to do is sign in with a Microsoft account. Once you do that, turn on to synchronize your system settings, not backing up your data, just synchronize your system settings. And if you're against Microsoft, you can just log out of the account and you will stay connected with the extended security updates forevermore. You won't have to log back in forevermore. They'll stay enabled for 12 months. So just do that. You're good till October 14th of 2026. So way too early for you to worry about that today. It's absolutely not a concern. It's no worry. But either replace the computer or turn on your extended security updates for free before October 14th would be the best advice I can give you. Again, the extended security updates, it's just a couple clicks. It's completely free. It's not a big deal. And you bought yourself another year for free. But they're not going to hand it to you. You have to go and turn it on. If you don't put your hand out, they're not putting anything in your hand, I guess is what I got to say. You can't just sit there and be served for free. But if you get up off your butt and make the effort, they'll absolutely return the effort back to you. Okay, just so we're all on the same page here. Doman 2000 said the extended security updates are still not enabled in the Netherlands. Well, we're over a month away, so I wouldn't worry about it. When you're a week away, when it's like the end of the first week of October, if it's still not enabled, let us know. We'll take a look at that and see if there's any news. In fact, I can ask Copilot right now, because maybe it's just you. Are you speaking on behalf of the entire Netherlands? Let's see. Are extended security updates for Windows 10, helps if I type correctly, available in the Netherlands now? Yes, extended security updates for Windows 10 are available in the Netherlands. Microsoft officially launched the ESU program to help users continue receiving critical security updates after Windows 10 reaches its end of support on October 14th of 2025. In the Netherlands, providers like APS IT Diensten are offering 1-year ESU licenses per device, allowing individuals and organizations to extend protection for their Windows 10 systems. Devices must be running Windows 10 version 22H2. If you are not running 22H2, you will not be offered the extended updates until you upgrade your Windows 10 with the latest free Windows updates to get you current. Then you will see the activation for offered. And I'm not aware of any country being blocked. I am aware that Microsoft must roll this out controlled. We can't have a feeding frenzy and open the food trough and say, everybody come eat now. There's going to be fights and people being crushed to death. People act very selfishly and greedily in general. And Microsoft servers will be taken to the ground, and it will shut down the business end of Microsoft for that. So common sense must prevail, and that there must be a controlled rationing of how many people can be offered the update. Just like group boarding on an airplane. We don't say, okay, everybody get on the plane all at the same time. Let's board group 1 first. Let's group, whatever the group number is. Let's board by group. We'll try and get everybody in the back of the plane in first, or we'll try and get everybody closest to the windows in first. Then we'll work into this middle seat, and then finally the last group will be the aisle seat. That way there's not so much chaos and chaos and trying to get average, ordinary, non-thinking human beings aboard an aircraft. They just don't think. You have to kind of corral them like sheep or cattle. And in doing so, Microsoft has to do the same thing, because otherwise everybody's going to want it 10 years ago. If Microsoft would have offered security updates for Windows 10 in 2015 that said, when Microsoft 10 security updates expire, when you don't get any more support in 10 years, you can click here to sign up now. That would take their servers down 10 years ago. Why would anybody sign up for it 10 years in advance? It's just greed. So in any event, just because you're not seeing it doesn't mean it's not available to everybody in your country. It's just you have a place in line. And when your turn comes up, you'll be offered it. And there's still no reason, there's no benefit to have that today. If you just want it out of the way, I understand. But if it's not being offered to you, then you have no choice but to wait, because it's not your turn yet. Okay. Now, when we get to about October 7th or 10th, and you're still not seeing it, then there's likely something about your computer that makes it ineligible, or something's wrong with it. But we'll cross that bridge if necessary. Likely this will solve itself. It's just an intolerance and impatience and being demanding and having unrealistic expectations. Just because somebody got served ahead of you doesn't mean there's favoritism. It means it's not your turn. So relax. Good night, guy, okay? Sorry, just South Park flashed in my head. Hey, guy, relax. All right, buddy. All right, let's see. John Williams said he was offered extended security updates last week. I was at a client's upgrading 4 of their computers from Windows 10 to Windows 11, and all 4 of them, when I went to Windows Update, all 4 of them were offered extended security updates. Now, I have another mini computer over here that we can turn on that so far, last time we turned it on a couple weeks ago, was not getting the updates offered. That's not a problem. It's just not our turn in line yet. So I figured I'll take it out periodically and check. It'll come up. I can almost guarantee before October 14th that will come up. And for a few people out there, a very tiny amount of people, it may not come up due to a system incompatibility or configuration issue. But we don't know who those people are or how many, but I can tell you right now it's going to be a very tiny amount. Then, not right now, we're still rolling out. Keep going around in circles on this. I think you get me, right? You understand what I'm saying? There's people lined up for the buffet and you're back there in the line. Don't worry, the food will be there when you get your turn. They're gonna run out of food before I get there, man. Relax. David Graham said his cousin got notice to extend his Windows 10, but he opted to have me build him a new PC, and it's done. It's a good excuse for a new PC. Who doesn't want a new PC? But yeah, you can extend Windows 10 support for 12 months for free, and you don't have to buy nothing. No victims here, just people that either are entitled, intolerant, or just demanding even though they're not customers. You know, when you have a customer come into a shop and start making demands, but they've never bought anything, they're not a customer. They're a shopper. We don't, necessarily value shoppers who aren't buying. They're welcome. You want to browse around. But if you want to cause trouble, get out. It looks like we're still updating over here. These are some big updates, by the way. So even when you have a rocket ship of a machine, the way Microsoft rolls out these cumulative updates, they tend to take a while. And that's why it's best, another reason to have updates just automatically install. And this will happen in the background and we're not sitting here watching it. But when it's a brand new computer, this is a great burn-in test. Make sure it gets those updates and succeeds without any blue screens, without any errors. And if all that works as expected, it's a good thumbs up burn-in that, hey, we're good to go to start customizing our own software and accessory installation on this. One thing at a time, because if you do too many things, more than one thing at a time, and you reboot and it stops rebooting or has an issue, you won't know which of the many things you changed are the cause, and I don't want to be you, and I don't want that job, because you're somebody who just creates your own problems. Do one thing at a time. And if you go, well, it's all going to work, well, roll the dice. Go ahead. But if I gave you 25 of these and I said I want all 25 of these updated and configured by the end of the day, you better make sure you don't get stuck on one for 3 hours, because you're never going to get that job done, and I'm going to replace you with somebody else. So from a business perspective, that is not an attitude that works in sustainability and customer service. For you sitting at home, you make your own decision, but do set your expectations and your consequences accordingly. So if something goes wrong, you know exactly who caused the problem and what needs to be fixed. It's not necessarily the computer that needs fixing. Not necessarily. Find Me in Hawaii says hello. Welcome in. That's Ken joining us from Hawaii. And the screen is a little small for me to read here. Let me make that bigger. Okay, we're making some progress here. Installing. Yeah, these cumulatives, they can take a while. So just leave that alone, let it finish. We can go on with our testing after that. Charles says, you've got to be signed into a Microsoft account to get the extended security updates. Well, you're half right. You have to sign into a Microsoft account. That's free, by the way. If you don't have one, you just make one, to enable extended security updates. To enable extended security updates, you do that through a Microsoft account. Once you have enabled the extended security updates, you no longer need to be signed into the account again. So I hope I'm clear with that. I was hoping if I slowed down, people might, maybe I talk too fast and I provide too much information too quickly. John Downey mentions HIPAA and FINRA compliance. That doesn't apply to anybody who doesn't work in a field of compliance. Essentially, and let me tell you why this information is just nonsense from my perspective. There's nothing anybody in this chat room has to do with that information. If you're hired by an employer where FINRA and HIPAA regulations take effect, then that employer will direct you on what it is you will do. Essentially, if you don't know what you're doing and you work in a regulatory required business such as finances or health, you have no business in that job. Essentially, you will be hired to maintain the computers and you will be told what to do by people who make those decisions that are the ones being held accountable by the regulatory requirements. You, myself, FINRA and HIPAA do not apply to us. They apply to employees and corporations of employees that are in that field and will be directed by the corporation on how to proceed. Telling anybody in the chat room that's needed is irresponsible because you don't know, but your employer will tell you. And the regulatory government agency that enforces that will tell you. But somebody in a chat room in a YouTube video is not somebody you should be taking a government regulatory official advice from, and in general does not apply to any YouTube viewer. And again, even if it did, it would still be directed by the parent company. That would be held fined. The individual employee wouldn't be fined, the company would be. Just so you know, just FYI. A lot of financial software, by the way, won't even install on Windows 10 anymore. Things I think even like TurboTax won't even install on Windows 10 if I'm not mistaken. Intuit products, I think, require Windows 11 for the last year or two, or they won't work, period. So end users don't really get a choice. There's a lot, the reason I bring it up is there's a lot going on in corporate America that if you're not working in corporate America, you don't have a clue about. So somebody tells you one thing about corporate America and you think that's worth discussion, but there's 1,000 other things that you don't know about unless you're in the field that apply to specific companies, including individual company policies, that you will, as a requirement of an employee, you will be obligated to fulfill those policies and procedures, or you will lose your job. And unless you work for that company or in that industry, those rules do not apply to you. When I am a shopper, when I'm a consumer, none of that applies to me. It only applies to employees. And employees will be directed by their employer what all these rules are. So just naming, HIPAA and FINRA, there's a lot more, so much more to it. That's such an oversimplification of the requirements that I have to call it out. And I have to say, look, guys, it's way more than just that. And you would know that if you worked in the field. But there's certain jobs I won't take on because I don't know what the regulations are. So if a company hires me where they have to meet the regulations,
I don't know the regulations. For certain ones I do and certain ones I don't. And for the ones I don't, I just say, I'm sorry, I'm not qualified to do that job because I'm not willing to take on the liability. So, and that's just me protecting my reputation, my integrity, that I wouldn't jeopardize a company with government fines that can then sue me for those damages and ruin my reputation. It's much more sustainable for me to just say, look, it's not my specialty. You probably need to hire a specialist for that, or more of a specialist than me in that particular arena. Most of the time that's handled internally. They don't often, big companies don't often go to third parties for that solution, though it's not unheard of. Those third parties are usually promoted as being specialists in that particular field. It's not just looking in Craigslist for somebody, is what I'm saying. Richard DeFry says, hello, welcome into Richard. Charlie Purdy said, I do both and I have to abide by the laws required by the state and the feds. Oh, you know, that's a great point, Charlie. There's not just federal law, there's state laws that are regulated in some industries as well. That totally slipped my mind. This is such a complex subject that you could dive in just to the FINRA regulations for federal and state, and as they vary. Things like what TurboTax and Intuit has to abide by when they sell their software throughout the United States, and they have to follow each state's rules as well as federal rules. When TurboTax updates the tax software, not only are the federal regulators, lawmakers, constantly changing tax law that Intuit has to stay on top of, sometimes it's last-minute changes. Quite often, last-minute changes. And then the state tax collection is also doing it. And so if you're Intuit and you're making TurboTax, you have to keep up with every single state's ever-changing tax law. And at the same time, so there's 50 different states, 50 different tax laws. Some tax laws only apply to portions of the state. Like, let's say there's disaster relief in Los Angeles because of the fire. They get certain tax breaks there in California, but not in San Diego, San Francisco, or elsewhere. TurboTax has to accommodate all of this on top of all the federal laws. And sometimes the federal laws change 2 weeks before the tax close, you know, before it's time. I've seen some tax law, in my experience, change like the day before or the week before taxes are due. And then you just have to file an addendum. There's nothing else you can do. But if you want to abide by it, you can't just ignore it. So I'll let accountants deal with that. That is a nightmare. And then don't even get me started on the healthcare stuff. It's a whole nother insurance requirements if you're going to file a claim, and how the paperwork has to be filled out and when it has to be submitted. And if you don't dot every I and cross every T and do it by a certain date, you know, if you leave a field blank, if you didn't answer a question, your insurance claim is denied. You have to start all over again. And if you don't meet by the deadline date, you just don't get it at all. And then each insurance company has their own rules. Many of you may not know this, but I used to work for a contractor that would service Dell, Compaq, and HP computers and printers. And when we serviced an in-warranty Dell, we had to, from the time Dell, so Dell says we've got on local support, right, on-site support. And they used to do this for consumers. Dell would send us the support ticket because it was in our region. They say our, I'm referring to our to my employer. They had numerous employees, and you get a service ticket and they would hand the service ticket to you, and Dell technical support has already diagnosed it. This is a frustrating job. So the service ticket will say, go to this customer's location, which could be a home user, not just a business. You could be walking into the smelliest, most disgusting house you've ever seen. Animals running everywhere, feces and urine all over the floor, just nasty. And along with the support ticket, you got a box. And in the box was the part they want you to replace. Don't think. Just go to this location, change out the power supply, put the old power supply in the box, send the old box back, fill in the form, have the customer sign, and submit that within 4 weeks, or you will not get reimbursed at all. So you change out the power supply, machine still doesn't turn on. That's it. You've done your job. You write down machine still doesn't turn on. You send it back to Dell, let their support decide what to do next, and then if necessary, they'll order another support ticket with another cardboard box with a part they want you to go out there and switch out. They don't care what you think. They don't care what your thoughts are. They're not interested. Shut up. Do your job. Get it done in time. Fill out the paperwork. Submit it in time, or you don't get paid. All because, you know, grandma called support, right? All of this starts kicking off into gears and cogs that turn, and managers and administrators and paperwork, and everybody's got to keep track of an audit. Did this get paid? Where are we at on our deadline to submit it? Was it submitted? Oh, God. All right. Let's go to Windows Update one more time. I just want to make sure we're fully updated here. But, you know, that's why they call it a job. Doesn't mean it's going to be enjoyable, although I did enjoy my job. There were parts of it I don't like. And pretty normal for any job, really. Some people hate every aspect of their job. I'm glad I'm not one of those people. Although that was a choice I made. I just said I worked some jobs I absolutely hated. I worked at Jack in the Box. That was my very first job. I hated that job. Hated that job. And I remember I was asking a friend of mine, like, why do they treat us so poorly and pay us so little? Minimum wage was $3.35. And the manager said, what are you doing? What do you mean, what am I doing? Well, I don't pay you to stand there. If you got time to lean, you got time to clean. Grab a mop. I grab a mop. Manager goes, where'd you learn how to mop? Have you never mopped in your life? Has your mother never shown you how to mop? Oh, give me this. And, you know, berate me and humiliate me in front of everybody for $3.35 an hour because I just got done serving 40 people that all came in for lunch and we were super busy. No time to take a break. Get back, start cleaning. And I said, why do they treat us so badly? And a friend of mine said, look, do you want to work at Jack in the Box your whole life? Because if they treated you better and they paid you better, you probably wouldn't aspire to do anything more. Oh, yeah, that's your motivation to not work at Jack in the Box your whole life. Never thought of it that way before, but he had a point. All right, we're checking for updates, and I see Mara approaching. Mara alert. Mara alert. Mara is approaching. I have emails.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I need to have a little alert. Oh, our friend Find Me in Hawaii with a $20 PayPal contribution. He said, this is for refreshments. Right on. Thank you. Hey, do you remember, it was just yesterday, but maybe you weren't here. I was talking about how I found the Gatorade I buy on Amazon. Check this out. Just in case you weren't here yesterday, I'm going to show it again. I jump over here to Amazon and I'm going to just, since we're waiting on updates, Gatorade lemon lime, and I want the 12 pack here. Now, what I was talking about the other day is when I go to the grocery store to buy these, you see that price right there at Amazon that includes free delivery right to my front door tomorrow? All I have to do is click the button to add it to my cart and click the button to pay for it, and I don't have to get out of my chair. I don't go to the grocery store, find a parking spot, find a cart, weave my way around all the people blocking the aisles, then wait in line to pay for it, then take it back out to the parking lot, then load them into the car, then take the car back home, then take them out of the car and load them into the house. This for $6 in change gets delivered right to my door. I literally open the door and just 2 feet later, it's in the house. So that must be quite an added price I'm paying for that, right? Not so fast. We just happened to be at Safeway grocery store And I said, you know, I'm going to start taking pictures so my viewers see I'm not exaggerating. So here is an image that I took with the phone. Safeway. These are the ones I buy. You saw the Amazon price, right? Let me show you the Safeway price. Somebody explain the economics of that. How can I have it delivered to my door $4 and change less? It's almost like half price than going to the store and doing all the manual labor to harvest, to gather it, put it in the cart, wait in line to check out, load it into the car, unload it from the car, and then on top of that, spend nearly twice as much. What has become of the world when I can have it delivered to my door for half price? And why wouldn't I? They're heavy. Now, when we go to Walmart and we go to Fry's, I'm going to take a picture of it and I'm going to show you. They're all pretty much right around that price. Now, we're not talking about a boutique grocery market. We're not talking about Whole Foods. I bet you it's even more money at Whole Foods. And we have another boutique chain here called AJ's. And I'll bet you it's even more similar to Whole Foods. How many of you don't know this? Because I wish I'd have known it earlier. I could have diabetes by now. No, I would have saved a lot of money is what I would have done. All right, let me jump back over here and see how we're doing. Oh, still a number of updates processing. Very good. This is why we keep checking until there's no more updates available. There's no sense testing this without all the updates enabled. All right, let me jump back over to camera 1 for a second, and we'll put it back where it was down here. Keep an eye on that. And let me jump back over to the chat room. Sean's Computer Repair says, I buy all my soda on Amazon. It costs less than $4. Yeah, see, Sean knows. I'm telling you, a little bit of knowledge can save you a lot of effort, a lot of added labor, and a ton of money. Charlie Purdy said, thanks, Carrie. I had 5 12-packs delivered today. I think I got a hernia. Well, you pick them up one at a time. Usually they're in cardboard 2-packs. Yeah. That can be a problem with bottled water, too, for sure. Dustin Fuller says, great stream as always, Carrie and Mar. Thank you, Dustin. Lou Greenia says they're in Vermont, but he lives in the sticks, which is Vermont. Everything in his local store is 35 to 50% markup. You know, Luke, you probably do know, but I was not aware. There is a grocery store chain on that side of the country, probably not too far from you. Certainly a lot closer to you than to me. That's like a Disneyland of grocery stores. And it's called Stu Leonard's or something. Yeah, it's called Stu Leonard's. And this is like a farm and a greenhouse and a butcher and a deli and a restaurant. Like it's got animatronics, like a theme park and a petting zoo. Holy cow. I guess it's based out of upstate New York. I never heard of it before. And apparently the prices are really super low. And when you walk in, it's just a huge marketplace with a huge variety of everything from produce to other food goods and meats. And oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I know they're like in Connecticut and New York in that area. So I wonder if there's one if there's not one in Vermont, it can't be that far. You're right there. From where I'm standing, you're right there. Is there one in Vermont? I gotta look it up. Does not have a physical location in Vermont, but it carries products from Vermont-based company. All right, that's not what I'm looking for. You'll have to look it up. Depending on the proximity, it might be worth a drive, even if for no other reason than, not only can you get some grocery shopping done, potentially, might need to bring a cooler to keep things cold, but might just be a fun experience to have for a couple hours drive, maybe not even that. Almost done with that update. Yeah, Stu Leonard's. You can look for it here on YouTube. There's some people walking through the store, and those videos are usually at least a half an hour long. It takes that long to do a quick tour. My jaw was like, what? Why don't we have one of those? Mark Leibowitz from Chicago. Stu Leonard's, he says, yes, back when I worked for a bank, they were presented to us as a shining example of customer service. Luke Greenia says he's never heard of them. And Mark Leibowitz said they're not a big chain. Oh, I know they're not a big chain. I think they're family owned. And let's see. Let me go to Copilot. What is, first of all, how many Stu Leonard's stores are there? There's only 8 stores. So there's 3 in Connecticut, 3 in New York, 2 in New Jersey. Which is closest to Vermont? Danbury, Connecticut. That'd be about a 2.5 to 3 hour drive. I would totally go. I would totally go. Maybe I wouldn't buy refrigerated items or frozen items, but if I was going to, I would either bring with me a cooler or just buy one at Stu Leonard's, because I'm sure they sell them. Just for the experience, I would plan a day. I'd say, you know what we're going to do today? Because look, here in Arizona, we'll take a trip 2 hours up north just to get out of the heat. And then when we're up north, we go, oh, let's go another half hour, maybe another hour north. So we go up, for example, to Prescott. It's like an hour and a half, probably an hour. And then from Prescott, we go, oh, we're so close to Sedona. Let's go another half hour into Sedona. Then you're in Sedona and you might think, well, do we want to go another hour to Flagstaff or do we want to head home? And we'll spend the day just kind of checking out all the cities in between and getting out of the car in the unique shops. And Sedona's all red. It looks like you're on the surface of Mars. It's really cool if you've never been there. And it's still cool if you have been there. But, and Prescott is really unique. They have some farms like Mortimer Farms in Dewey, Arizona, which is right there in Prescott Valley. You can pick your own harvest, whatever they're harvesting, and they have a petting zoo, and it's just multiple acres with a restaurant and all kinds of. It's a working farm that also is open to the public. It's very cool. And yeah, we'll drive the hour or whatever it is, 90 minutes up there just to go to the farm and then come back. So to me, to drive to Danbury from where you're at seems like it'd be a nice thing to do for a day. At least to me, it does. He's saying it's 4 to 4.5 hour drive. He's right on the Canadian border. I'd still go. I would still go. There's a giant gas station chain that started in Texas, and they're sort of branching out around neighboring states, and they're opening one here in Arizona, but it's going to be a good half hour to 45 minutes away. It's a gas station. And Mara's like, when that opens, we're going. I said it's 45 minutes each way. And it's called Buc-ee's, B-U-C-E-E-S. And if you look here on YouTube for tours of Buc-ee's, it's the world's largest gas station. They have over 100 fueling stations. And when you walk inside, they have bakeries, they have delis, they have barbecue made on site. They've got a jerky bar. They've got all these Buc-ee's branded snacks and treats and candies. Oh my gosh, it's become such a thing now that people will vacation to go to Buc-ee's. Buc-ee's is meant to be a place you stop at on your road trip, but it's becoming the reason for many people to go on a road trip is to go to Buc-ee's. So Mara is super excited they're opening up one. It is the length of a city block. When you open the doors and you walk in, it is from edge to edge, one city block in length. And when you go outside to put gas in your car, there's 100 fuel pumps. Now, I imagine if you're in England or in Europe, you're like, what is it with Americans and making everything so abundant and massive? What could I tell you? Things are just getting bigger and bigger. Like I thought when I was a kid, the Pilot and Loves and what's the other one? The big truck stops. Pilot, Loves. Is it J? Something J? Anyway, they're all over. And they always have cleaner, Buc-ee's is known for having the cleanest restaurant. They get cleaned a couple times every 15 minutes. They go in there and check them. They're like the cleanest in the industry. And T&A, I think, is the name of the truck stop. And these truck stops are massive. Buc-ee's makes them all look tiny. So what I'm saying is we will drive to go to basically what is a shopping mall, especially when it's something different we haven't experienced before. I think it's worth the experience. So maybe, if you're 4.5 hours away, that's like me driving to Vegas and driving back. I wouldn't just drive to Vegas and come back home. I would stay at least a night. But if I am on my way somewhere else, certainly something to consider. What are we doing over here? Let me make the screen bigger again. Seems to be stuck on downloading 0%. What I'm going to do is I'm going to restart this because I don't know why that's taking so long. And then sometimes it may start the update here. Other times we have to go back and kick it off again, but I'm not too worried about that. We can, as far as I'm concerned, we can start benchmarking it. Sometimes you get one of those delays and it's not worth waiting for. But it's worth waiting for to get it. It's not worth waiting for in a live video, in the sense that we have other things we need to do and we're going to run out of time if we wait anymore. Flying J's and TA. Yeah, there it is, Victor. He's got it. Flying J, TA, Loves, and Pilot. So there's 4 of them that when we're driving like from Phoenix to Michigan, we'll often go through New Mexico. We go through Albuquerque into Amarillo, Texas, into Oklahoma on the west side and straight across to the opposite end of Oklahoma, down into the corner basically of Tulsa. That leads us into Missouri. Joplin, Missouri, and then you start going, so that's taking us all east rather, and then we start heading up on an angle up towards Michigan. That'll take us through Missouri and Indiana, and then into Illinois, just a corner. Let me rephrase, Missouri into Illinois, then into Indiana, but just cutting the corner of Gary, Indiana, right up into Michigan, and we're already on that western side of Michigan at that point. If we wanted to go to Detroit, we'd probably leave Chicago a little different. Either way, we go through Chicago. But because we're going to the western side, we go to Grand Rapids, we end up going through Illinois from bottom to top, Oklahoma from side to side. We go through the entire state. Anyway, so when we're out of Oklahoma, we're down into Joplin, Missouri. North through Missouri, you have to stop at the Uranus Fudge Factory. Now, the first time we saw this, we couldn't believe it was real. There's a lot of billboards building up to this. You're just on a freeway in the middle of the mountains, like the Ozarks, basically. And when you're driving, you'll start seeing signs for a giant candy store, which has got to be fun if you're a parent with children. Can we stop there? Can we stop there? World's largest candy store. Okay. But next to that, like a mile down the road, and they've since opened a second one now in Indiana, but it's called the Uranus Fudge Factory, which, you know, we had to stop at that. We had to see this for our own eyes. What is this? I'd never heard of it before. And if you go to their website, you'll see it's in fact quite real. There's got a flying spaghetti monster on top of a UFO being eaten by a dinosaur. Anyway, everything you need is in Uranus. There's a taste of Uranus here. It's the best fudge, comes from Uranus. They serve fudge there. And you can get a job as a fudge packer. It's a pretty large facility. You'll see there's the one in Indiana. Here's the one in St. Robert, Missouri. Oh, they opened a second one in Indiana. It's just a fun place, and its scale is quite large. I don't know if they have any photos of the place, but it's like a little strip mall, and they have all different kinds of little exhibits and museums and things you can go into, and it's all tongue-in-cheek. It's very funny. They had a wooden box with a metal cage on top of it with a notice that said that there were baby rattlers inside of this box. So you have to walk up to the box and look in, expecting to see snakes, baby snakes, but no, they were little baby rattlers, like just laying on the bottom of the box. Baby rattles. It's just a bunch of silly stuff like that, photo opportunities. It's a lot of fun. All right, let me get my flash drive and let's run some tests. One of the fun things about a road trip is when you stumble on stuff you weren't ever intending to look for. And then it becomes like the highlight of the whole trip. And that's exactly what happened. And now it's like a requirement. If we're driving through Missouri and now Indiana, since they've since built two in Indiana, we got to go check them out. It's fun. It's definitely not as fun as the first time, but it's still fun. If you make a purchase there when you're checking out, they will always say to you, "Thank you for picking Uranus." So stupid. All right, let me get back over here to full screen. And let's copy some stuff off of the flash drive. Guess I'll take that. And let's load VLC on here just because I like to do that. Just load it right off the flash drive. Well, that's working. Let's grab Uncle Carrie's Windows 10 optimizer. And I need the Windows 11 network fixes for later. For testing, I'm going to want HWI, Crystal Disk Mark Portable. This is done. Finish. Continue. Close. Okay, HWI, drag that out. Why is it not going, or am I not seeing it? Bring it out, let it go. There it goes. And then Cinebench. I'm very curious what Cinebench numbers we're going to see on this. I'm having some drag and drop issues today. That's a pretty big folder. Take a second. Yeah, these are regular USB 4. If they were version 2, which we're going to see soon, they'll have a little V2 labeled next to it. So I just I forgot to check that. Okay, we're good here. Take my flash drive out. Let's bring up Crystal Disk Mark. Let's see what kind of drive performance we're going to get out of the factory drive. Let's start there. Realize my camera is in the way, isn't it? Drag that. All right, let's get back over here. Terrell Cochran says it sounds a lot like Hell, Michigan. Hell, Michigan is a little teeny tiny city with like one little church thing, and you can be mayor for the day. It's kind of a one-trick pony. There's not a whole lot to do there. There's a gift shop. You know, it's neat to say that when someone told you to go to hell, you went there, but it's not anything to compare to. If nothing else, the fudge at Mackinac Island, Michigan, may be closer in size and scale, and also the fudge is really good. A lot of people that will go to Mackinac Island go there specifically to get the fudge. There's a fudge company at Mackinac Island that's been in business over 100 years. They've been selling fudge there. Let me look it up. What is the oldest fudge company on Mackinac Island? It's French. Mackinac. The oldest fudge company on Mackinac Island is Murdoch's Candy Kitchen, founded in 1887. It holds the distinction of being the first candy shop on the island and is widely credited with starting the island's famous fudge making tradition. Yeah, I mean, if you go to Mackinac Island and you're not coming back with any fudge, why did you go? Same could be said for the Uranus Fudge Factory. You might go for the name, but stay for the fudge, is all I'm saying. It's not just a gimmick. It's actually really good stuff. And they sell other stuff too, but mostly they're famous for their fudge. Mostly they're famous for their name. Okay, so a write and read numbers sequentially, we're at 6,106 on our sequential reads, 5,301 on sequential writes. This is exactly what I would expect from a factory Gen 4. If that's not good enough for you, you might want to consider ordering the bare bones version. That way you're not paying extra for parts you're going to remove. So if you wanted to put in more RAM or faster RAM, more storage and or larger capacity and or faster, and you're willing to do that work yourself, it would be cheaper for you to buy the bare bones version of this. And I'm so happy that Minisforum offers that, because a lot of companies don't. A lot of companies are like, hey, if you open this, you void your warranty. And then you go, well, not in the US you don't. But nonetheless, they discourage it. Minisforum does not discourage it. Scott says there are no cars allowed on Mackinac Island. This is correct. It's all horses, horse and buggies, bicycles, people walking. The only cars allowed would be emergency vehicles, fire trucks, ambulance, that sort of thing. So there are cars, but government emergency services kind of stuff, obviously. I think that's obvious. But there's no stoplights or anything because there's no cars. Just got to make sure you don't get hit by a horse pulling a carriage. There are lots of horse and carriage rides. You will not find pre-manufactured mini PCs designed for the masses to contain extraordinarily high-performing, high-heat components. They just don't make. There's not a manufacturer that makes it. As far as I know, it does not exist. These, when people are making, if you're a PC manufacturer, you want to sell as many computers as possible. I think we can agree that that's pretty obvious. And one of the ways you're going to do that is by offering the lowest price. And another way you're going to do that is by offering the most amount of value. Nothing high performance with regards to RAM or storage is a high value. It isn't. It would result in some sales if you put a higher end NVMe drive in here, but it would likely cost you a lot of sales from people who won't spend it. They won't see it. So what they do is they say, and it's a great thing, I think. Minisforum says, look, we're configuring these in the way that sells. Nothing personal. If what you like isn't something that sells very much of, You can do it yourself. We'll sell you the computer without the RAM or storage. Since you're so difficult to please, you don't represent the average ordinary consumer who doesn't know any of this, right? So from their perspective, you're being difficult. And rather than coddle you and then say, pay us extra for it, and then you get offended like, oh, why am I paying so much? There's no winning with people like that. So the best thing you can do is say, here it is without the RAM or storage or operating system, because what we do is never good enough. You do it yourself. And that way, everybody's happy. But the vast, vast majority of people that buy this will never open it. And the reason they're going to buy it is because they need that amount of power. And you likely will not find this much power at a price cheaper than what they're offering it at. And if you can, please make me aware of it, because I would like to know. So, and that's as of what? The 7th of September, 2025. Now, maybe in a few months, some competitors will come out with some things, but not right now. So to complain about anything on this, to me, doesn't make any sense because of how aggressively priced it is. But that's just my opinion on the matter. Now that we have these results, let me just grab a screen capture of those. File, save image. Save that on the desktop. Just call it Crystal Mark dot JPEG. Perfect. Okay, so with that, let's close that out. Let's go to hardware info. Let's take a look at what our temps are. We'll bring up hardware info 64. Start that with sensors only. Okay. Drag that over here. I'm going to get rid of camera 1. Just a minute. That's what I'm looking for. So we did hit a peak of 70, which is pretty warm, and we haven't really worked it yet. That was on performance core number 12. Looks like it momentarily hit 70 so far. Let's go ahead and start up Cinebench. Let's get rid of camera 1 here so you guys can see everything. Let's go back here. This should be impressive. I have high expectations. And this is where the machine should shine with regards to performance. Not on the storage and not on the RAM. You're not going to find a machine that does that. That's pre-built, that's outside of gaming. It just doesn't sell. They've tried. All right, let's do accept and start. Yeah, some people buy it, but most don't. And as a result, it ends up costing them money, and it's just not a community worth pursuing. All right, so here we go. Running our test. Like I say, the first 90 seconds of the multi-core test will probably result in us seeing peak temperatures. This is our current temp. These are our minimum temps down the middle. And then over here, the maximum recorded temp during the test. This is 100% silent. I'm still not hearing the fan, which I don't understand. The streamer has a liquid cooler in it, and I'm hearing the streamer's fan crank up. But the mini PC has not in any way gotten any louder. It's whisper quiet even now. So I don't know what voodoo Minisforum's using here, or if it's just the technology of the new Intel chip. I feel hot air coming out of it, but I don't hear the fan. If I listen really quietly, it's just whispery. It's there if you want to, focus on it, but I haven't even noticed. All I'm noticing is where my hand is on the desk. I can feel the hot air coming out of it, blowing over the heat sinks of the CPU. I'm going to, I think, run an experiment on this where I plug the OCulink adapter in and use our Minisforum PCIe dock and throw a capture card on it and see if I can't stream with this. Now, this is way more power than I need for streaming, like way more. My only question is, will the GPU dock detect anything other than GPUs? I'm just curious. The lid on here is pretty warm. Like it's not hot, but it's, you know it's on. It's warmer than room temperature. It's got to be in the 90s. So maybe they're using the case as a heatsink. Still, when we did the Minix PC that was fanless and the whole case was a heatsink, it would burn your hand. It was so hot. I could barely touch it. I tried to hold it as long as I could, like put a finger on it just to see. I think I got maybe 1 second before I gave up, 1.5 seconds. That's dangerous. Like I don't see the benefit of having a unit that's completely fanless and silent, but at the cost of, you know, any pets or children burning themselves. But the benchmark numbers we get on Cinebench, they should be really impressive. You know what? I think I can put camera 1 back and just stick it in the opposite corner. Now that I realize what I'm doing. Let me just move it out of the way over here where there's really no information we're looking for. That way we can keep an eye on everything together. Bill Sony said his little mini PC is still great. Right on. Glad to hear you're enjoying it. Oh, John Williams is talking about wall drug. Wall drug's been around forever and all these billboards, and it's a giant drugstore in the middle of nowhere. I think it's South Dakota or something. There's like nothing to do. So that is the big thing everybody talks about. If you're on a road trip and you're driving through America for hours and hours, 12 hours, 20 hours, just with nothing but, you know, fields of hay and wheat or whatever, fields of wheat, corn and other stuff that's being grown as far as the eye can see for hours and hours, and then suddenly there's the world's biggest drugstore, Wall Drug. You're so happy to have anything. The expectations are quite low. So by today's standards, Wall Drug, and I've never been there, but I've seen some videos here on YouTube, it doesn't even compare to the modern day rest stops and places like Uranus Fudge Factory. But it's also nowhere near any of those things either. So my perspective might change out of sheer boredom that there's something finally in the middle of nowhere. And it's been around, I think, since the 60s, the 70s, a long time. Let's see, when did Wall Drug open? Might as well look it up. It opened in December of 1931. They were offering free ice water to travelers heading to the newly opened Mount Rushmore. That simple gesture turned Wall Drug into a legendary roadside attraction. Today, it's sprawling 76,000 square foot destination that draws in over 2 million visitors a year. Not bad for a humble little pharmacy in the Badlands of the Dakotas. All right, so here's the deal. 76,000 square feet ain't nothing. If we look up what is the size of Buc-ee's, BUC-EES, oh, it's actually pretty close. 75,593 square feet, making it the world's largest convenience store. And that was compared to, what did I say, at Wall Drug was 76,000. And Buc-ee's is actually smaller. It's 7 square feet smaller. But it says it's the world's largest convenience store. I guess Wall Drugs would be the world's largest pharmacy, even though it's mostly a convenience store. I don't get that. I don't think they serve gas. Maybe that's the difference. Interesting. I would have thought that Buc-ee's was nearly twice the size. But that goes to show you Copilot coming in handy so I can fact check myself while I'm live. Terrell wants to know, are we buffering? We are not buffering, no. No, we have had 0.0% drop frames this entire broadcast, 100% perfect broadcast today. I mean, now that I've said it out loud, I might have just jinxed it. Look how fast those squares are drawing on there too. If you've seen me run this test before, you can already tell this is faster. This is not a graphics test. This is a CPU performance test. So not only is there the Uranus Fudge Factory in Hell, Michigan, but there's also Christmas, Arizona. There you go. If there's a quick way to make a buck out of a nowhere destination to get people to stop there, somebody clever enough will give people a reason to come by it where otherwise they would have no reason to go out of their way to the middle of nowhere. So you give it a funny name and you might draw some traffic in. Sometimes that's all it takes. I'm seeing maximum temps right now, 92 on core 2. This is what I want to see. I mean, I want to see under 100, and we can get up to 100 as long as we're not staying there regularly. Like right now, we're running in the 80s during this test. And that's fine. We're under 85. I'm totally fine with it. And then if we peak to 90 or 92, even 95 or even 97, just for a moment, that's okay. That's what it's supposed to do. I'm good with that. We've got about 44 seconds left here, and then the actual benchmark starts. This will essentially heat everything up for 10 minutes. And then after the 10 minutes and everything's all nice and hot, then it measures the benchmark performance. That's what makes Cinebench R23 unique and more. I mean, it's still a synthesized number. It doesn't really emulate real world use, but I suppose that's probably a little more accurate than, you know, running it from cold. You notice our efficiency cores, or E cores, you know, they're just a fraction of the power. And at least these two are. These LP ones, these are low power. And look how much cooler they run because they're slower. They're not as powerful. And then we have regular E cores. So we have a mixture here. This is news to me. We have a mixture of performance cores, efficiency cores, and low power efficiency cores, which must be something new to the Intel Ultra 2 series of mobile chips. Very cool. So that way, it's like having multiple gears in your car, depending on how you're driving. You know, maybe in slow residential driving, you'd be in battery only mode, like on a hybrid car. But then when you get up onto the freeway or major surface roads, then you get a combination of performance and efficiency cores as needed to give you the power you need along with the fuel mileage that is the best for each scenario. That's very similar. When we talk about efficiency, we talk about how much power we're consuming and how green are we as users. That is very interesting. I like that. All right, let's see. We've got 15,761 points. Let's start the single core test. Now, what does that put us by? That puts us by our Threadripper. Very close to a Threadripper 1950X. And do you remember how much a Threadripper 1950X used to cost when it was new? Because Copilot can remember. I'll bet you. How much was a Threadripper 1390X when released? Am I typing the number wrong? It says there is no such number. Let me go back and look again. I gotta make the screen big. Threadripper, oh, 1950, 19. That explains that mystery. Okay, 1950. So the 1950X came out 8 years ago on August 10th, almost exactly 8 years ago, 2017. The retail price of that Threadripper, $999 US. Okay. Keep that in mind. That was just for the chip, not the motherboard, not the RAM, not the storage, not the case, not the power supply, not the Wi-Fi. Okay, so yeah. 64 PCIe Gen 3 lanes. How many PCIe lanes does Intel Ultra 2 285H have? 28. So you see Threadripper is still far superior in the number of input-output lanes that you can handle simultaneously. But it also supports Gen 4 and Gen 5. You can get 1 by 8 Gen 5 out of that chip, even though the motherboard here doesn't support it. The chip can do it. But that gives you a little mix of bandwidth and versatility depending on how you use it. So it's getting closer, you know, these consumer-based chips to those workstation chips. And they're significantly less money. I wonder how much this would cost. How much, if you could buy the mobile chip, does it cost for Intel Ultra 9 285H? Oops, typed that wrong. $285H. Starting price about $651. So 2/3 of the cost of the Threadripper 1950X from nearly 10 years ago. The integrated GPU is the Intel Arc. Now here it says 140T. It does not say i40T. 140T. It's got 8 Xe cores up to 2.35 gigahertz. It's using a 3 nanometer process with TSMC. So Intel's not even making this. Intel has contracted TSMC to make it. That's not good. I mean, it's fine for us. It's not good for Intel. Wayne Was says hello from Brewer City in Milwaukee. Oh, the Brewer City, Milwaukee. Beer, bacon, cheese. What's not to love about Wisconsin? Okay, we should almost be done. Let me see. How's this doing? Oh, only halfway through warming up. Remember, single core is not really something that you would be utilizing on a chip like this. But it is part of the test just for the sake, you know, even though we have 16 cores, when we run the single core test, it's picking one core. I'm not quite sure how it prioritizes which core to use, but whatever core it picks, it sticks with throughout the entire test. And based on the heat, I gotta say, there's only one of these cores that should be getting real hot. And I'm gonna guess we're on core 12. Could be core 13 actually. The neighboring core will also get hot just from the heat coming off of it, like secondhand heat, if you will. And I'm gonna guess we're using core 13 on this test. Now we could, yeah, look at here, package power limit exceeded here. That's interesting. but it's hit 102 on the CPU package, which would mean that it's hitting its thermal limit, but it's not shutting down, it's not crashing, and it's only hitting it for like milliseconds. So that's what it's supposed to do. If it were doing this all the time, like if we were seeing 102 degrees Celsius regularly, I would be concerned over the longevity of the internal components causing failure prematurely due to advanced degradation due to heat and excessive wear. But for it to just kind of ramp up like that and then come back down, I'm not worried, because I'm not seeing, oh yeah, there's the Core 0 right there. So for some reason, Core 0 did hit 102. That is a little bit concerning, because I don't know how long it was at 102, but I'm assuming, since we're about half of that now, that it must have just been momentary. And if, you know what, look, again, if it's momentary, that's what it's supposed to do. And when I say momentary, I mean very briefly. But if you turn your computer on and it's idling at 80 degrees Celsius before you've done anything, you have a problem. And if you don't address it, you're going to pay in PC performance, reliability, and likely you're going to degrade those components to the point of failure much sooner. Not to mention, you're not being power efficient. But yes, it's sort of like the RPM on your car. It's got a little red area. You're not supposed to get into that area, but it's okay if you touch on it. So if you're passing somebody and your foot's to the floor and you see your RPM gauge sort of tap into the red, don't keep it there, right? You just do what you need to do and then get off the accelerator. You won't hurt anything. But if you keep it in the red too long, you'll blow the motor. This isn't that far different in concept from that analogy. Marsman said the Packers are beating Detroit. Uh-oh. I forgot NFL football's on today. And the Packers, Wisconsin is playing Michigan. Of course, our good friend Subaru Mike is from Appleton, Wisconsin. I'm from Detroit, Michigan. We didn't have a bet going. Usually we'll bet who's going to buy dinner. We already know he's going to be rooting for the Packers. I'll be rooting for the Lions, but at the same time, they're about equal footing. At least they were last year and the year before. They're not the worst teams and they're not the best teams, but every year they have another chance to sort of get you excited and hopeful. But the last couple of years, they've sort of like the same team. One could win one time, one will win the next. There's never any blowout or anything. It's always a very close game, and neither one of them seems to ever make it into the championships. But we still remain hopeful every year. Maybe this year. Andy says this is showing up slower than his GMK Tech K8 Ryzen 8845. So you had a score of 16,710. That's a really good score. Yeah. Luke says he's waiting for the NHL. David Graham says there's about 6 NFL games on today. I only care about one. It's all preseason. Doesn't mean it. No. Preseason's done. These are official games. They started Friday. September 4th, was that Friday? Yeah, and the preseason games, it's a great opportunity for the rookies to get in and play and try and convince the coach, put me into the games that count. Let me prove myself. Let their stars sort of take it easy, save themselves up for the games that count. But no, it's not preseason since September 4th was the beginning of the season. And yeah, still running the test. Full screen again. I can't see it when I'm watching the chat room. Oh, it's running the benchmark right now. Okay. Still for a single core, it's filling in those graphic squares pretty quickly compared to other mini PCs we've tested. Now, of course, if I get a big old desktop out here with a discrete, well, actually, discrete graphics wouldn't make a difference. This is just a CPU test. But the desktop version of the chip is going to be more powerful, and it's going to consume more power. The mobile version of the chip is going to be more efficient and be more compact, use less power. And that's true of all mobile chips compared to any non-mobile chips. That's just the way they work, right? Because when we deal with mobile chips, we're dealing often with laptops and other things that have batteries. It's no good to have a high-end gaming laptop that you think you're going to run off batteries, because you won't be running off the battery very long. So that's just about done. Again, I've not heard the fan crank up at all. Maybe it should be, seeing that 102 degrees Celsius, it shouldn't hit it at all. If it hits it and just bounces back down, it's fine. It is very warm to the touch, but you can see I don't have to pull my hand off or anything. That's not burning me, but it's definitely warm. And Minisforum has traditionally been very, very good with their cooling. I can't help but wonder if maybe that fan should be spinning a bit more and moving that air out, just because it doesn't seem like it would hurt. So when you're a manufacturer and you're trying to design a machine that people are going to buy, the general public is going to complain about the dumbest things, like just overall. Why did you choose silver? Why didn't you choose gunmetal? Well, they're practically the same. Well, I'm not going to buy it. Okay, well, if you get a bunch of people just giving you that sort of logic, what choice do you have but to accommodate them and start changing the color, even though it has nothing to do with the machine? But changing the color could result in doubling your sales. Now, as a technician, as an engineer, I'd say that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. You'd say, yeah, that's what happens when you are trying to sell something to a consumer. Many, and I even say most consumers, care more about how it looks and how much it costs before they even think about, well, how fast is it? Because most consumers can't tell the difference between an i3, an i5, an i7, an i9. They just don't know, because they're slow. So no matter how fast of a car you give them to drive, they're going to keep driving it like a Toyota Camry, even if it's a Chevy Corvette. It's not important to them which one's more attractive. And they might say the Toyota Camry is more attractive than the Corvette. They might say the Corvette's too gaudish and they don't like the color. You say that's a far better car. No, it isn't. I don't have a back seat. I have almost no trunk. It's very impractical. I can't take it on a road trip. It's terrible gas mileage. It's expensive to insure. The tires are outrageously expensive. You're like, well, you don't get it. It's like, no, you don't get it. You'd be a fool to spend your money on that nonsense. Toyota Camry is reliable. It's practical. It's got a much better choice of colors. I could buy 3 of these Toyotas for what that one Corvette cost, or 2, and never have a fraction of the problems you're going to have with that car. Get better gas mileage, and I won't stand out like a sore thumb when I'm driving down the road looking like a jerk, saying, hey, everybody, look at me. I like to blend in with the people. So who are you selling to? And if who you're selling to is the majority, then you have to have a majority mindset. If you want to sell to the minority, then you have to do customization and increase your prices by double in order to meet that. And then a minority of that minority will buy it, and the rest of that minority will say it's too expensive, I'll do it myself. So at the end of the day, you got to sell units, you got to bring profit in, you got to keep your employees employed. And it's what the people are doing, not what a person is doing, that dictates the direction of the company. Or you close the company up if you want to ignore that information. All right, so we got our final number, 2059 on the single core. I think I'll go ahead and take a screenshot of this. Let me remember, is it function? Function, alt, print screen. Let's see if that works. Control V. That is not what I wanted. So I got one window. I didn't want the active window. I guess I want to do function print screen without the alt. That should get me the whole screen. Somebody said, what happens if I hit the accelerator and the brake pedal and press them both down at the same time? Does my car take a screenshot? Let's see. That work? That's what I wanted. So that will give us the results that I'll save to the desktop just for future reference. I'll probably add these pictures to an Amazon review since I don't see any reviews for this product on Amazon yet. Desktop. And the Cinebench R23 JPEG. Close, close, close. That's it right there. Perfect. That's what I wanted. All right, let's shut it down. Let's open it up and see what the insides look like. This is why I'm not a doctor. Shut that bad boy down. I'm very happy with this. It's pretty much what I thought it would be. And we're just scratching this. There's still so much more. We haven't done anything with USB 4 yet. We haven't done anything with OCulink yet. And I would be very curious, as I mentioned, if I can use the GPU dock with the capture card in it and run it through the GPU cable or the OCulink cable into the back of this, which would require adding the OCulink port. We also can try configuring the RAID array, which would require putting 2 NVMe drives in, and whether or not we put another one in like they have, or if we're going to do that, maybe just go with a higher performance Gen 4 like the Feijings, put 2 of those together, put it in a RAID 0, get the RAID driver so we can install Windows, and then do our benchmarks. Likely we're going to see Gen 5 speeds. In other words, if this supported Gen 5 runs at twice the speed as Gen 4. So if you could get 2 Gen 4s working together, you'd get the speed of 1 Gen 5, which all of a sudden in 2025 doesn't sound all that impressive, right? Why go through the effort if you just buy a Gen 5 drive? Except this does not support Gen 5. Furthermore, going from 7,400 megabytes per second to 15,000 or 14,800, whatever it works out to be, results in about a millisecond or 2 milliseconds of performance difference in loading. So you as a human can never see it. You only can see it pretty much as a benchmark. And when Gen 6 comes out and it doubles that 15,000 max to 30,000 max, it's half a millisecond. And when that 30,000 doubles in the Gen 7 to 60,000, it's now getting into quarters of milliseconds of difference. The numbers keep getting bigger, but your return is getting smaller and smaller. It just diminishes away to, as far as a human is concerned, completely unnoticeable. You need a tool like a benchmark to identify it. It's too fast for the eye to see kind of a situation where once an object achieves a certain speed of motion, your eye cannot see it anymore. And anything faster than that, sure, if it's a bullet, it'll arrive at its destination sooner. If you have a bullet that travels so fast and another bullet travels 10% faster, you can't see either one. And the result of 10% faster, you could hear the bullet hit. And if you used a stopwatch, you probably couldn't stop the watch in time to be able to identify with any certainty what the speed difference is. You'd have to go over a very long range, probably further than a bullet could travel. And you'd have to be very precise. You'd have to use like a laser that you'd have to break to get an accurate reading. Humans just don't work that quickly. So don't get too swept up in the specs. Sometimes we're reaching a point where it's becoming absurdity. Just absurdity. Barry Klein with a $5 super chat says, I am back to pay to play today, so I'm not able to post again. God, that's weird. The message goes to YouTube, but they don't post to the chat. Huh. That is really weird. Okay, let's open this up. I'm gonna go ahead and unplug everything here just to be safe. And camera 2. Here we go. I like that I can use my regular screwdriver. I don't have to get any special tools for this. They're not Torx bits. There's no rubber feet to remove. Those are some long screws. That's good. That makes them easier to put in and take out than those little teeny tiny ones. We'll take that one off. Take that.
We're having the same problem.
Where you can't post?
Can't post. Like I'll send a message, it looks like it's gone through and nothing's there.
I don't want to talk to you no more.
Right.
Now go away or I will taunt you a second time. Well, not just you, Barry. If it can happen to our own channel administrator, I don't know what chance you guys have. It's clearly on YouTube. I hope that you hit the report button and report it to YouTube. I'm just gonna, without any special tools, I'm just gonna see if I can pry this up. Oh, it was feeling a little sticky. Oh, this is interesting. Okay, first of all, which way am I taking this off? The arrow that says front goes to the front. And there are two cables. Turn this around. Don't just rip this front off, the bottom off, because these thermal pads are kind of sticky. And that's what was kind of resisting me a little bit. There's no clips or anything like that. Now the Wi-Fi antennas are down below, so I know one of these is for a fan. So this has two fans in it, but I don't know what this other cable is for. So let me see if I can get that disconnected. See, we got a little tiny cable, it goes up here. Where is that going and what is it for? Don't know. Okay, I'm going to show you some cool features. Be very careful. You should be using some tweezers or a proper tool to take these wires off. When I use my fingers, I do try and grab the connector, not the wire. You can pull the wire right out of there. Let me bring this up to the camera and we'll ooh and ah over it together because this is a very thoughtful design. I'll just put that up there like so. You can take a look at that while I'm walking. Okay, we have a fan here with a power cable that powers this fan, which is just dead silent. There are two thermal pads here for NVMe drives. We're only using this one currently. This one's already in place, but it's on springs so that if the drives are of different heights, if they're double-sided or not, this does have some play so that it's adjustable. I don't know how well you're going to see that. So that way it makes sure that they're making good contact. But be aware that if you have a thicker drive next to a thinner one, this will spring to make contact with the thicker drive, and then this one will never make contact with it because it'll be kept too far away. So you definitely want to use two drives of the same thickness, ideally two drives of the same make and model. Now what I'm curious about is this little wire right here, which looks to be, and I really don't know, is it a temperature sensor? That wire, if we trace it, it goes down and it goes in there. I don't know what that is. I can only imagine that that is a temperature sensor, because if you look at the power cable, look how much thicker the power cable is, and look at this cable, look how much thinner that is. That also means this is extraordinarily fragile, very easy to break that cable. So do handle it gently. Now we could take these 4 screws out and see what's under there, but I'm going to guess it's got to be a sensor. There's no RGB or anything on this. And there definitely is something, if we look through there, there's some kind of metal heat sinks or something right there. So yeah, interesting. Now, when it comes to doing any upgrades in these, like I said, Minisforum does not discourage people from opening up their mini PCs And if you take a look in here, everything's laid out very easy to access. How about this for a photo? Take my glasses off. I got to do one of those Mr. Beast ones. Yeah, I think that's the look right there, isn't it? You got to angle it so it looks like I'm looking at it. If it'll focus, it doesn't want to, it wants to focus on my face. Come on. There it goes. Anyway, if you look, there's our DRAM. Let me turn it so it's right side up. Made by AData. CMOS battery right there. There's our Kingston NVMe drive, 1 terabyte. Gen 4. Second M.2 slot, which is right there. And then our OCulink, if we want to use that second M.2, we would remove this grommet right here. You see that hole? That's going to point you right in line, right here, with that M.2 slot. So that's a long card. So compared it to the length of the NVMe drive here, the M.2 card's got to go a little bit further, the M.2 OCulink card, to reach all the way back here. I'll show you. Let's put it in. So here's the, what should be, the optional OCulink add-in card that's included with the price. Keep that in mind. Minisforum could sell this as an accessory to nickel and dime you, but they don't do that. Now, the screw that's going to hold this down is already in here. So let's take that screw out. And instead of placing another NVMe drive in this, we will instead put the OCulink adapter in, and I'll show you how that's done. It's so easy, if you blink, you might miss it. Let me go back over to camera 1 first. Camera 1, Carrie. There we go. Okay, so line up the notch, right? Now you notice that's going to be a tight fit right there. That's because we want it to kind of poke through that hole a little bit. So if you just pull back on this plastic, it'll slide in without much force. And then that locks in right there. So again, if I hold it right side up, you know, everything's upside down normally when you're sitting it on the desk. And now where it says OCulink right there, that's what we just added. So if I pull on the plastic, because we haven't secured that in place, if I pull on this, you'll see that springs out. And now the OCulink is just a hole there. So don't force it in there is what I'm saying. Just grab the plastic, grab the edge of it, pull it away. Doesn't take a lot of force. Keep your finger out of the way. Set that in there. And as I pull back, very little pressure is all it takes. And it will, if I show you from this angle, it will seat right into that hole on its own. So check that, make sure that you've got it lined up well. If you don't, you can take it out and you can adjust it, you can wiggle it a little bit. Make sure it's seated in there. And it should just look like it's factory fresh. Then we'll take the screw that we removed. So remember, the screw goes here. So the mounting screw for the OCulink isn't at the end. It's right in the same line as it was, and as it is on an NVMe drive. Notice where they put the mounting hole? And that's it. You mount it with one screw. There's no software you need to install. There's nothing in the BIOS you need to modify. Just put the screw back in. Don't over tighten it. It's just there to secure it from moving around as you plug cables in and out of it. So once you get it snug, right there, just a little bit past snug, don't take it any further because you don't want it to be difficult to get out. And then with that, we can start putting things back together. And as we put this back together, we need to figure out, okay, how does this go on first? We have an arrow here that says front. All right, that tells us that goes towards the front of the unit, which is facing you guys. So our orientation is this way. So I remember when I pulled it up, these two pads go over the NVMe slots, right? So I know what's going to go on just looking at it. I know that this cable over here goes on the connector over here, and this cable over here goes on the connector over here, right by the RAM in the top corner. So I think I'll start with the thicker cable. No, I think I'll start with the thin cable first. And, you know, they don't give you a lot of slack because they don't want the cable to wrap up into the fan here, right? So that's really important. And the cables only go on one way. Do not force these on. And I got a feeling I'm going to need stronger glasses to see this, but notice how I'm putting this on. I'm letting the cable line itself up with the connector. And then I'll push down on it with a finger. Tweezers work really good for this, but you've got to be careful. It is a fragile connector. But I've got to imagine that's temperature. So what I'm going to do to push that down, my finger is just too wide. Something like needle nose pliers, where I can get to each side of it equally and apply pressure on the connector, not on the wires. Yeah, that feels like it's in there good. Then I'll grab the other one. That's a larger connector. Once again, it's only going to go in one direction. Keep our orientation straight here. And then we will put that one down. Again, I'm going to just let the connector seat itself. Well, it doesn't seat, it locks into the socket. And then I push down with my fingers. And if I can't get my fingers in there, I'll use something like tweezers or needle nose pliers. And that time I saw the whole connector go in. So that's a good solid connection. And with very light tension, I can tell those cables are in. Slight tension, because otherwise if it pops out, I did not have the cable in all the way. Set that back down. And we'll put the screws back in. Oh, I just heard it click. This is really super easy to get into. Now the two brass fittings that you see up here, that's for your Visa mount if you want to use it. No rubber feet to remove. Everything looks good. Now we have OCulink, just like that. Give it power. Give it HDMI. I'll save this little rubber plug. Keyboard and mouse. And then I need Ethernet, which I dropped on the ground. Ethernet. Turn it back on. And hopefully we didn't break anything. Let's see. Pretty nice unit. I think it's a really good solid value for one of the fastest computers you can buy. Now there is still the AI, what is it called? The AMD Strix Halo with the AI 395HX. And Minisforum does have that coming out. That'll probably be faster than this. However, that's the way this industry runs. And then Intel will have something, and then AMD will have something. And, you know, depending on when you buy, there's always something better coming out around the corner. Andy says Gen 5 runs so hot it adds another problem to get rid of the extra heat. That's true. This is true. It does run very hot. Back over to camera 1. Okay. Bill wants to know if the keyboard and mouse and dongle come as a kit. Yeah, it has to. It wouldn't work otherwise. Yeah, this is sold as a kit. I've been using these for years. You just now noticed? We were using these at Studio A, Studio B. You just now noticed? Yeah. I get these all on Amazon. There's my Amazon store. If you're curious about the parts we use, see if I can pull this up for you. I'll just type in Amazon space Kerry Holzman. Let's see if that pulls up my Amazon store with a Google search. I've never tried that. Recommended products from Kerry Holzman. Okay, let's see if that brings up. Oh, it does. Cool. So Amazon.com. Let's see. Amazon.com/shop/Kerry Holzman. These are videos I've done, mostly just unboxings. They're just edits of the long 2-hour videos that don't really tell you anything about the product, just here's what's in the box. Amazon has been rejecting my videos where I talk about anything about the product. If I show a serial number, they crawl up all over my back. So the more useless I make the videos for Amazon, the more likely they will approve them without hassling me. But if we click on idea lists, we have, let's see, these are production items, equipment and tools that I use right here. This will show you the flashlight, the Lazy Susan, the adapters, the flash drives I use for BIOSes, the different adapters I use on the cordless driver, power button, the thin Ethernet cables, USB chargers that I use. This is the clock I'm looking at to keep track of my time. These are the plastic razors. That's the old mouse and keyboard we used to use. And this is the tripod setup I use, along with the cables to hook the cameras up to the capture card, along with a color screen and HDMI to these are extending units here, couplers, the battery chargers I use. I stopped using this battery charger because, you know, when it gives me a level, it doesn't tell me how many volts are in it. So I switched this out to one that shows actual voltage. These are cheap flashlights. You get a pack of 10 for like $2 a piece. The lighting, studio lighting, spudging tools, iFixit toolkits I use, another power button for external testing motherboards. There's the needle nose pliers I was just using, the Van pliers. They're expensive, but damn, they're really nice. They're the Rolls Royce of pliers. What else do we have in here? The hard drive eraser for secure erasing for Department of Defense standards. The blower, the external NVMe, the picks that I use. The wheels on the C-stands that hold the lights, another spudger, the little scissors you'll see me pull out, the battery chargers for the cameras, more bits for different types of cases. There is the Artec keyboard and mouse, which is similar, but that's my backup keyboard and mouse. Somewhere in here, let's see, magnetic screwdriver. There's the yellow handled driver. This is for the camera. These are the Japanese Hosan sets for the JIS standards. Engineer also makes great pliers as well. Engineer and VAM pliers are both fantastic. Engineers are made in Japan, as I believe the VAM pliers are, but they're a little more affordable. That's the card we were using. $1,000. Get out of here. And the Engineer screw removal pliers are amazing. So if you ever had a screw you couldn't get out, these pliers are designed to grab around the head of the screw instead of inside of it with a flat edge, and you can rotate the pliers, backing that screw out. These are the rechargeable batteries, dust covers, wire cutters, screwdriver. There's the wireless mouse right there. $30, 8% coupon. That's exactly what I'm using. Both are rechargeable. I plug them in about once every 2 or 3 months to charge them up. No batteries to change. Great bargain. But if we go back and see here, you'll also find my box cutter, some heavy duty impact #2 Phillips bits, a kilowatt meter to see how much power things are taking. This is an adapter for some Sony cameras or Canon cameras that don't have a normal size hot shoe on them. HDMI to DisplayPort cables, DVI to HDMI adapters, Noctua thermal paste. So pretty much everything you see me use on the channel can be purchased here at my Amazon store. You can locate it much easier than trying to search it yourself. Just as a reminder, I haven't talked about that in a long time. $24-6 Packers. Oh, that's killing me. You're killing me. At least it should be a close game, for crying out loud. Well, I'm glad I'm not watching. All right, any final questions, comments, concerns? Oh, this thing is not warm anymore. It's really cooled off. It's now room temperature all the way around. So that Cinebench really worked it. And you know, just know that if you're going to work it that hard on a regular basis, it's gonna put out some heat. You may not need a heater this winter. It's putting out some heat, but it's not too hot. Now that we have the OCulink card in there, or the adapter in there, next thing will be to put a GPU dock, put a capture card on it, load OBS on here, see if we can live stream out of it. That'd be kind of cool. Not practical, but cool. Now I understand I can get USB capture cards, that's not a big deal. But I have a unique 4-port input 4K capture card that there is no USB equivalent to. It's a lot of bandwidth to move at 4K simultaneously through 4 inputs. So see if it works through the dock is just a curiosity with no real pragmatic purpose. Otherwise, I guess that'll wrap it up for today. So I want to thank everybody for being members here and supporting us. Thank you for your contributions, your gift cards, your memberships. Without you guys, most of my videos would not exist. I also want to say thank you to Minisforum. I didn't even know they were sending this, which is kind of good because I'd be anxiously awaiting it. So it was a nice surprise, and we appreciate them that they send it to us without any conditions. They encourage us to be honest, to offer any critique, and I mean, that means the world to me, because for me to have to buy this to review it for you guys, you know, we're looking at about $1,000. In order for me to make $1,000 from memberships, if memberships are $9.99 each and YouTube takes 30%, then I'll get $7. So once a month from each person, $7 is what I'll get. How many people do I need as members to buy one mini PC to do one video one day out of the 30-day month? A lot. Like I need about 150. So that's great for one video, but what do I do for the rest? So when Minisforum sends this to us ready to roll like this, you have no idea how much I appreciate that, because we're giving you an early look at a brand new product. It's not costing us anything to make it. And then you guys, if you're interested in it, I'm not here to tell you whether or not you should buy it. That's your decision. But I can tell you, Minisforum has a history of quality, great support, and good value. They're one of my they're the favorite brand I have for Mini, flat out. Like they lead the way, everybody else follows. I still like others besides them, but if you gave me a choice of multiple and you said I could have any one of them and they're all the same and the only difference was the manufacturer, I'm taking the Minisforum one myself. That's what I recommend to my clients as a first choice. Not an only choice, but definitely a first choice. And this is why. They're just really well polished. And well, this one does tend to run a bit hotter than normal, than other mini PCs that Minisforum makes. It never once crashed on us or shut down due to heat. So it looks like they engineered this one to go past the edge or right to the edge, where they usually stay further away from it, which may be costing in some performance. It's a decision, it's a judgment. And yeah, you could probably get in the BIOS in this. And in fact, maybe we should just take a look at the BIOS and see what sort of customizations we can make. And then we'll wrap it up. It just occurs to me we didn't do that. So let's come over here. And I'll go to shutdown, start. And let's see if it's the delete key, which I think it is. And I will start pressing the delete key here. As soon as the restarting word goes off the screen, I'll start pressing delete repeatedly. And hopefully that'll get us into the BIOS. There we go. Pressing delete, 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 delete over and over. Not too quickly. Just tap, 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 tap. There we are. So we have a familiar graphical user interface Minisforum. We've seen this interface before. We are familiar with it. And where we want to go here is right to setup. And that's going to bring up your typical BIOS here, right? Your main settings. Advanced settings, which includes your trusted computing subsection. CPU configuration. I really don't do much in here. And again, you've got all these options you can pick from. I wonder what power and performance options are. Oh, you can change your power profile here. You can go into performance mode if you want to get it even hotter. And you can go into manual mode and set everything yourself, or just leave it in balanced, which is what I recommend. Here's your PL1 and PL2 settings, 45 and 65 watts. All right, then we go back to, what's the next one? Onboard devices, primary display, blah, 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 VMD. That's going to be your RAID setup, virtual machine disk or something. That's where the RAID is located. If we go in there, we have to enable the VMD controller. And then we can enable then what if we want RAID 1 or RAID 0, assuming we had 2 NVMe drives in there. HD audio controller, PCIe resize bar support is enabled out of the box. Above 4G decoding is enabled out of the box. These are all your default settings, including HDMI CEC controls if you wanted to make this your media PC to control it with a remote control. You can look up what HDMI CEC control is. Your TV might have it as well as a sound bar. And then you can use one remote for everything. ACPI, that's just going to be your wake on LAN, things like that. We go over to hardware monitor, and that's just reporting probably the temperatures and fan speeds. And again, we can adjust the fan mode. If I thought it was getting too warm, I could make the fan more aggressive. But I'd rather let the system adjust quiet when it needs quiet and performance when it needs performance. But you can override that if you think you know better or you have different preferences. Deep S5, that's just a a sleep mode or a power saving mode. And then the network stack, of course, that's just going to be UEFI network stack. We don't get into that here because we're not a corporation. And we'll jump back over to, let's go to security next. That's where you can set a password to get into the BIOS, and you can turn secure boot on, which is already on. And then we can go back again to boot. And then there's your boot sorry, not override, but boot order. Whether or not you want the numlock on your keypad turned on or off at boot up by default. Whether or not you want a quiet boot or you want to see all of the text of what's going on with all the checks. Quiet boot means it just shows you the curtain, which is Minisforum's logo is the curtain, instead of showing you the old-fashioned text that used to show up on computers as they booted. You've got save and exit, which I think is pretty obvious what that does. And then MEBX, which I don't know what that is. Enter a password. I don't know. I'd have to research MEBX. I have no idea. Honestly, don't know. Never seen that before. Technology keeps changing, and we're just trying to keep up. And then, of course, we can save changes, discard changes, or load optimize defaults. I'm going to discard the changes and exit. Okay, now I think that'll cover it. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out. And yeah, we'll look into, what did I say it was called? Yes, I can ask Copilot. What is MEBX? MEBX stands for Intel Management Engine BIOS Extension. It is a firmware interface used to configure Intel's Active Management Technology, or AMT, which is part of the Intel Management Engine, or ME, subsystem found in many Intel-based systems. So it is a firmware interface accessed during system boot, usually by pressing Control-P, that lets administrators configure the advanced active management technology settings. That allows remote management of computers even when they're powered off. Oh, is this like IPMI? Oh. As long as the computer is connected to a network and it has power, apparently with AMT, you can access this remotely somehow. Security and provisioning. MEBX is used to set passwords to enable or disable remote access and configure the network settings for AMT. So AMT is what we use in big corporations where we're sitting at a desk and we're taking control of the workstations. I want you to picture in your head a high-rise building in a downtown area. And in that high-rise building, there are multiple employees with desks, each sitting at a computer, and one IT department that is in charge of maintaining those computers, the updates, configurations, and solving problems. And if we can do that remotely, we don't have to get up and walk over or get in the elevator, go to whatever floor it is. That's what we did at Intel. That's what I did at Intel. These days, with this remote management technology, we can log right into the computer without getting out of the chair. Intel is a big facility here in Chandler, Arizona. It's 5 buildings connected together. They all weren't built at the same time, but they were built up against each other. So some of them have multiple floors. And so if you're in building 1 and you've got to get to building 5, you've got to walk through building 2, 3, and 4. And building 5 might have 3 floors, but building 4 doesn't. So you're going to be on floor 1 to walk across from building 1 all the way to building 2, through building 2 into building 3, through building 3 into building 4. You might pass through the cafeteria. You know, it's a pretty large place. Then into building 5, then up the stairs or the elevator to wherever the customer might be, working at, 3rd floor. They'll often be in a cubicle that'll have a row letter and a row number. So they might say, find me at building 5, floor 3, cubicle C5. So you find row C, A, B, C, and then you look for column 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then your customer will be located there. Instead of all that, now with these types of remote management, IT can simply stay at their desk, log into that computer remotely, even if it's turned off, and do those adjustments. So unless they have to physically change something, which most of the time we don't, it reduces the amount of time invested just getting there, right? Your feet only move so quick, and it's a huge place. And you're not riding around bicycles or carts because there'll be too many accidents. I'll have to look into this to see how this works, just for myself as a self-employed technician. It probably doesn't benefit me at all. I would just use a nano KVM, quite honestly. But, to each their own. Interesting. I learned something new. I've never heard of that before today. Who knows? Maybe you haven't either. So now maybe we all learned a little something. That's going to wrap it up for me for today. Thank you to Mara, of course, for all the work she does in the background. She answers your emails and she monitors the chat room. She does our thumbnails and our video descriptions and makes a lot of low-carb, sugar-free treats barefoot in the kitchen. Never mind, there's a joke in there. Let me go to, one more time, a shout out to our friends over at Minisforum for sending us the unit to review. And we will bring this back up for a part 2, as I mentioned. Maybe even a part 3 if I get into that MABX stuff. The email address, if you want to reach us, I'll put it right here on the screen. And of course, be sure and give us that like and subscribe if you would. If you enjoy the video and you're not already subscribed, be sure to hit the bell icon, turn notifications on so you can be made aware anytime we post new content. And the thumbs up, it's all good. If you give us one, we appreciate it. If you don't, if it's too much effort, don't be bothered. With that, I think it'll wrap it up for today. And shout out to everybody with the super chats, which includes, very quickly, boy, I keep trying to get out of here and I keep forgetting. I got to get a checklist. Thank you to Barry Klein and Paul Vircher, Jose Lopez for your super chats. And thank you to Abdul Azim Patel for renewing membership today. And then with the other forms like gift cards or PayPal contributions, a shout out, of course, to our friend Buster. Charlie Purdy, thank you as always. And find me in Hawaii, Ken Chong. Thank you, Ken. And I think that catches us all up. We are back live tomorrow at 1 o'clock. This is our members only videos we do every Monday. You must be a member to watch those videos. They are never, ever, ever made public. And it's a much smaller audience, smaller chat room, much more intimate and informal. So if you want to connect with us that way, we'd love to have you there. Just be a member, and you're welcome to watch and participate in the members only videos. And if you miss the members only videos, you can always, as a member, watch the ones you've missed as well. That's going to wrap it up. I'll see the members tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. And until next time, bye for now.